My new wife bought her sister a house and then gave me the mortgage documents. You've saved enough. It's time to help your family. I say no. They sued me for $920,000. And the judge asked me one question. The thing about betrayal is that it never announces itself with thunder. It walks in on a Tuesday afternoon, wearing your wife's smile, carrying a manila envelope that feels too heavy for what it contains. I was sitting at the kitchen table when Maya came home. Our kitchen, the one we'd designed together 6 months ago, back when ours still meant something mutual, something earned. White marble countertops that caught the afternoon light just right. Cabinets we'd picked out on a Sunday in April, arguing playfully about hardware finishes. The espresso machine I'd bought her for our 2-month anniversary, back when I still thought expensive gifts equaled love received. I remember the exact angle of the sun, how it cut through the window above the sink and lit up the dust particles in the air, making them look like they were floating in honey. I was reviewing a contract for work, something tedious about supply chain logistics, when I heard her keys in the door. "Hey, you're home early," I said, glancing up. Maya set her purse down on the counter with that particular care she always used, like the granite might shatter under the weight of her designer bag. She was wearing the cream blazer I'd complimented last week, the one that made her look like she could negotiate world peace before lunch. Her dark hair was pulled back in that effortless way that actually took her 20 minutes each morning. "I needed to talk to you about something," she said. "If you've ever been in a relationship long enough, you know that tone. It's the one that sounds casual, but carries weight, like someone trying to hand you a grenade while pretending it's an orange." I closed my laptop. "Everything okay?" She pulled out a chair across from me, but didn't sit. Instead, she stood there, one hand resting on the back of it, and reached into her bag. The manila envelope emerged, slowly, deliberately. She placed it on the table between us, with the reverence someone might use when presenting evidence at trial. "I bought something," she said. I waited. The sun had moved slightly, and now a beam of light hit the envelope directly, making it glow like it was radioactive. For Serena. Serena, her younger sister, 26, chronically unemployed, perpetually one crisis away from needing rescue. The same Serena who'd borrowed $4,000 from us, from me, technically, since it came from my account 3 months ago, to start a business that, as far as I could tell, consisted of posting inspirational quotes on Instagram about being a boss babe. "What kind of something?" I asked, though part of me already knew. The envelope was too thick for a gift card. Maya finally sat down. She folded her hands on the table, fingers interlaced, and gave me that look, the one I was starting to recognize as her "I've already made the decision, now I'm just managing your reaction to it" face. A house. The word hung in the air between us, like smoke. I blinked, laughed. A short, confused sound. A house. In Riverside. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. Beautiful backyard. Serena's always wanted a garden. You know that. And the school district is excellent for when she has kids someday. My brain was doing that thing where it hears words but can't quite assemble them into meaning. Like when someone speaks to you in a language you took in high school but never practiced. "You bought your sister a house." "I know it sounds impulsive," Maya said quickly, her words picking up speed like a car rolling downhill. "But the market was perfect, and this property had been sitting for 3 months. The seller was motivated. We got it for $40,000 under asking." We. That word. Small, poisonous, loaded with assumptions. "Maya." I kept my voice level, calm, the way you speak when you're trying not to spook a wild animal. "How much?" She pushed the envelope toward me. $920,000. The number hit me like a physical thing. I actually felt my chest compress, like someone had reached in and squeezed my lungs. 920. I couldn't finish the sentence. My hands were numb. I reached for the envelope, fingers clumsy, and pulled out the documents. There they were, mortgage papers, pristine, official, already signed. And there, on line after line, in a dozen places throughout the document, was my name. Not as a cosigner, not as a reference, as the primary mortgagee, I don't understand, I said, which was both completely true and a massive understatement. It's simple, Maya said, and her voice had that patient quality now, like she was explaining something to a child. You have excellent credit. My credit is complicated right now because of the business loan I took out last year. The bank wouldn't approve me. But with your score, with your income, it was easy. Easy. The word echoed in my head. You forged my signature. I didn't forge anything. She said it quickly, defensively. I'm your wife. I have power of attorney for financial decisions. Remember? When you were traveling so much for work, you said I should be able to handle things if you were unavailable. I did remember. I'd set that up a year ago, back when we were engaged, when I was flying to Singapore and Dubai every other week for client meetings. It was supposed to be for emergencies. For paying bills if I was unreachable. For making medical decisions if something happened to me. Not for buying her unemployed sister a nearly $1 million house. Maya, I can't afford this. My voice came out strangled. We can't afford this. You've saved enough, she said, and there was steel in her tone now. The patient-teacher facade was cracking. I've seen the accounts, David. You have almost $2 million in investments. Your 401k alone is worth more than most people make in a lifetime. You're sitting on all this money like some kind of dragon hoarding gold, and meanwhile, my sister is struggling. My family is struggling. Your sister is 26 and doesn't have a job. She's had a hard life. Maya's voice rose, sharp enough to cut. Not all of us had everything handed to us on a silver platter. Not all of us had parents who paid for college and gave us trust funds. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. This was familiar territory, the subtle reframing of my middle-class upbringing as some kind of aristocratic privilege. My parents had been comfortable. Dad was an engineer. Mom taught high school. They'd saved for my education. They'd helped with a down payment on my first condo when I was 28, after I'd spent 6 years working 80-hour weeks to prove myself. None of that equaled a trust fund. None of that meant I owed anyone nearly $1 million. This isn't about my childhood, I said carefully. This is about you making a massive financial decision without consulting me. You committed me to a mortgage I didn't agree to. It's time to help your family, David. She's your family, not mine. The words came out harsher than I intended, but I didn't take them back. Maya's face hardened. Outside, I could hear kids playing in someone's yard, a dog barking. Normal sounds from a normal Tuesday that felt increasingly surreal. We're married, Maya said, her voice dropping to something quiet and dangerous. My family is your family. That's what marriage means. It means supporting each other. It means sacrifice. Sacrifice, I repeated. You want to talk about sacrifice? I paid off your car loan, $38,000. I paid for your mother's dental surgery when her insurance wouldn't cover it, $14,000. I've given, let's be honest, your brother money for his startup 3 times. Money I'll never see again. I've sacrificed plenty for your family. Those were gifts, Maya said. You said they were gifts. They were, because I love you, because I wanted to help. But this, I gestured at the mortgage documents, my hand shaking slightly. This isn't a gift. This is a legal obligation. This is 25 years of payments. Do you understand what you've done? She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor with a sound like a scream. What I've done is take care of my family, since apparently you won't. I won't be financially responsible for housing your entire family tree. Then maybe you should think about what kind of husband you want to be. She grabbed her purse and walked out, just like that. Left me sitting there with the mortgage documents spread across the table like evidence at a crime scene. I heard her car start in the driveway. Heard her pull away, probably to her mother's house, where she'd spend the evening painting me as the selfish villain who refused to help his struggling sister-in-law. I sat there as the sun moved across the kitchen, as the light changed from honey gold to amber to the pale blue of early evening. I read through the documents 3 times, every page, every clause, looking for an exit, a loophole, some kind of mistake that would make this all go away. There wasn't one. The mortgage was real. The debt was real. My signature, or rather, Maya's careful forgery using her power of attorney, was legally binding. $920,000. Monthly payments of nearly $6,000 for the next 3 decades. For a house I'd never seen. For a person who'd never thanked me for anything I'd done for her. In a marriage that, I was beginning to realize, had been built on very different definitions of the word partnership. I pulled out my phone and called my lawyer, Tom Bradshaw, a guy I'd worked with on business contracts for years. He answered on the 3rd ring. "David." "Hey." "What's up?" "Tom," I said, and my voice sounded strange to my own ears. Distant. Hollow. "I need to talk to you about power of attorney, and fraud, and I'm not sure what else." There was a pause. Then, "Are you okay? You sound—" "I'm fine," I lied. "Can you meet tomorrow?" "Of course. 9 work for you?" "9's perfect." I hung up and looked at the envelope again. At my name, typed in clean black letters across legal document after legal document. At the address in Riverside 3847 Meadowbrook Lane, a place I'd never been, never chosen, never wanted. This was the moment, I think. The moment where the story really began. Not when Maya came home with the envelope. Not when she'd signed the papers weeks earlier without telling me. But right there, in that cooling kitchen, with the light fading and the weight of nearly $1 million in debt settling onto my shoulders like a physical thing, that was the moment I decided I wasn't going to carry it. That was the moment I decided to fight back. If you've ever had someone you love fundamentally misunderstand what you're owed, what you've earned, what you're willing to tolerate, you know this feeling. It's not anger yet. It's not even hurt. It's something colder, clearer. It's the feeling of someone drawing a line in the sand and realizing you're standing on opposite sides. I gathered up the documents, every page, and put them back in the envelope. Then I pulled out my laptop again and opened a new folder. I titled it Evidence. I photographed every document, every signature, every clause. And then I started taking notes. Because if Maya wanted to play this game, if she wanted to treat my life savings as a family ATM, my financial security as something negotiable, my consent as optional, then she was about to learn something about me. I didn't get to where I was by being stupid. I didn't build a career in corporate negotiations by rolling over when someone tried to push me around. And I sure as hell wasn't going to let anyone, wife or not, saddle me with $1 million in debt I didn't agree to. The sun finished setting. The kitchen went dark. I sat there in the shadows, laptop screen glowing, building my case. Outside, the world kept spinning. Kids kept playing. Dogs kept barking. Inside, everything had changed. The war had started with a manila envelope on a Tuesday afternoon, and I was done being the peace treaty. Tom Bradshaw's office occupied the 14th floor of a steel and glass tower downtown, the kind of building that reflected clouds during the day and glowed like a beacon at night. I'd been here a dozen times before, always for business, contract reviews, partnership agreements, the mundane legal architecture of corporate success. Never for this. I arrived at 8:45, 15 minutes early, because that's what you do when your entire life is collapsing and you need to maintain the illusion of control. The receptionist, Amanda, I think her name was, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, smiled at me the way she always did. "Mr. Chen, good morning. Tom's expecting you. Can I get you coffee? Black, please. Thank you." She disappeared, and I stood there in the waiting area, surrounded by leather furniture and abstract art that probably cost more than most people's cars. Through the windows, I could see the city spreading out below like a circuit board, organized, logical, everything in its place. Unlike my marriage, Maya hadn't come home last night. No call, no text, just silence, which was its own kind of message. I'd spent the hours between midnight and dawn going through our finances with a precision that would have made an auditor weep with joy. Every transaction, every transfer, every credit card statement for the past 2 years. The patterns were there once you knew to look for them. I'd just been too trusting or too stupid to see them before. "David." Tom emerged from his office, hand extended. He was 52, perpetually tan from weekend golf, with silver hair that probably made him an extra $200 an hour in client confidence. "Come in." His office was exactly what you'd expect. Dark wood, law books that probably hadn't been opened since digital research became standard, a window view that cost his firm a fortune in rent. He gestured to the chair across from his desk, not the conference table, which meant he was taking this seriously, and sat down, fingers steepled. "Tell me what's going on." I pulled out the envelope and slid it across the desk. He opened it, and I watched his face as he read. It's interesting, the way lawyers process information. Most people would react emotionally, surprise, anger, sympathy. Tom just read, his expression neutral, occasionally making small humming sounds that could have meant anything. After 5 minutes, he looked up. "When did you find out about this?" "Yesterday afternoon." "And you're certain you didn't sign these documents yourself?" "Tom, I didn't even know Serena was house hunting. I sure as hell didn't agree to finance it." He leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking softly. Outside, I could hear the muffled sounds of the city 14 floors below. Traffic, construction, life continuing as normal while mine came apart. "Okay," he said finally. "Let's walk through this. You gave your wife power of attorney. That document," he tapped one of the pages, "is legitimate. I can see from the notarization that it was properly executed. As your attorney, in fact, Maya had the legal authority to enter into financial agreements on your behalf." "Oh, even without consulting me?" "Unfortunately, yes. The power of attorney doesn't specify that she needs your explicit consent for each transaction. It's broad, probably too broad, in retrospect." He paused. "However, there's a key issue here. Power of attorney requires the agent to act in the principal's best interest. That's called fiduciary duty. And a power of attorney requires the power of attorney. Can you make an argument that taking on $1 million mortgage for a house you'll never live in, for the benefit of a third party, is in your best interest? Of course not. Then we might have grounds for fraud, or at least breach of fiduciary duty." He pulled out a legal pad and started making notes. "But here's the problem, David. You're married. Community property state. Depending on how the mortgage is structured, how the house title is held, you might be looking at a complicated situation." My chest tightened. "How complicated?" "Well, if the house is in Serena's name but the mortgage is in yours, that's one thing. If it's held jointly, that's another. If Maya used marital assets for the down payment..." "Wait." I held up a hand. "Down payment. How much was the down payment?" Tom flipped through the documents. $200,000. The number hit me like cold water. $200,000. Where did she get $200,000? "You tell me. Do you have joint accounts?" "We have one joint account for household expenses. I put in $5,000 a month. She puts in $3,000. Everything else is separate." I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and felt my stomach drop. No, she couldn't have. But she had. My investment account, the one I'd built over 12 years of careful saving, aggressive portfolio management, and living below my means, showed a withdrawal. $215,000. Dated 3 weeks ago. A Thursday. I'd been in Boston that week for a client presentation. I showed Tom the screen. "Jesus," he muttered. She had access because of the power of attorney. Yes, and technically, again, she was acting within her legal authority, whether she was acting ethically or in your best interest. He trailed off, shaking his head. "David, I need to ask you something. What do you want to do here?" I looked at him. Really looked at him. Tom was a good lawyer, but more than that, he was pragmatic. He'd seen enough divorces and financial disputes to know that sometimes being right didn't matter. Sometimes the fight cost more than the victory. "I want out," I said. "Out of the mortgage. Out of any financial obligation for that house. And I want my $200,000 back." "And the marriage?" The question hung in the air. I thought about Maya's face yesterday. The way she'd stood in our kitchen, that we designed together, that I'd paid for and told me I'd saved enough. Like my money was a community resource. Like 12 years of 80-hour work weeks and saying no to vacations and driving a Honda instead of a BMW were just me being greedy. I think the marriage is already over, I said quietly. I just didn't know it yet. Tom nodded slowly. Okay, then here's what we're going to do. First, I'm going to file to revoke the power of attorney immediately. That stops any future transactions. Second, we're going to contest the mortgage on the grounds of breach of fiduciary duty. Third, we're going to send a demand letter to Maya and Serena for return of the $200,000. What are the chances they'll actually return it? His expression told me everything. Low, which means we prepare for litigation. David, I'm not going to lie to you, this is going to get ugly. Especially if you're talking about divorce. California is a community property state. Anything acquired during the marriage is split 50-50. I had most of that money before we got married. Then we'll need to trace it. Documentation showing what was premarital assets versus what was accumulated during the marriage. Do you have that? Yes. I'd kept meticulous records. It was one of the things Maya had mocked me for: my spreadsheets, my folders, my careful categorization of every financial decision. I have everything. Good. Get me copies of everything. Bank statements, investment records, anything showing the source of funds. We'll build a timeline. He paused. And David? From this point forward, every interaction with Maya needs to be documented. Texts, emails, recorded conversations if California law allows. It's a two-party consent state. Then just texts and emails. Nothing verbal that isn't witnessed. I know this sounds paranoid, but in disputes like this, people say things. They make threats. They make promises. And then in court, it's he said, she said. I want everything in writing. I nodded, feeling the weight of it settling over me. This was really happening. My marriage was ending over a manila envelope, and my wife's inability to understand that generosity had limits. Or maybe it had been ending for a while, and I'd just been too busy working to notice. Tom walked me through the next steps: paperwork, filings, timelines. By the time I left his office, it was almost noon, and I felt simultaneously exhausted and wired, like I'd drunk too much coffee on an empty stomach. I drove home to the house Maya and I had bought together 8 months ago, the one with the white picket fence and the garden she'd promised to maintain but never did, and found her car in the driveway. She was home. My heart rate picked up as I unlocked the front door. I found her in the living room, sitting on the couch with her mother, Patricia. Of course, backup, reinforcements. The Ramirez family didn't fight fair. David, Patricia said, standing up. She was 62, elegant in that way some women achieve by sheer force of will, wearing pearls with jeans, like it was normal. I'm glad you're here. We need to talk. Hello, Patricia. I kept my voice neutral. I wasn't expecting you. Maya called me last night, upset. She said you were being unreasonable about helping Serena. I looked at Maya. She wouldn't meet my eyes. That's one way to describe it, I said carefully. Another way would be to say that Maya committed me to $1 million debt without my knowledge or consent. You gave her power of attorney, Patricia said, like she was correcting a child about a basic fact. That means she can make financial decisions for my benefit, not for Serena's. Serena is family. Serena is Maya's family. And even if she were mine, that doesn't give Maya the right to drain my investment account and saddle me with a mortgage I can't afford. Patricia's face hardened. Can't afford? David, you're a millionaire. Don't pretend you're some kind of struggling victim here. And there it was, the fundamental misunderstanding that had probably been lurking beneath every interaction I'd had with the Ramirez family for the past 3 years. Because I had money, I was obligated to share it. Because I'd been successful, I owed them something. Because I'd said I do to Maya, I'd apparently also said yes to financing her entire extended family's dreams. What I can or can't afford isn't the point, I said. The point is consent. The point is partnership. The point is that marriage doesn't mean Maya gets to treat my bank account like a charity fund for her relatives. Maya finally spoke, her voice small. I thought you'd understand. I thought you loved me enough to want to help. I do love you. The past tense was there, unspoken but loud. But love doesn't mean financial exploitation. And this isn't help. This is you making a choice that affects my entire life without including me in the decision. Because I knew you'd say no. Exactly. My voice rose, finally, the anger breaking through. I would have said no. And you knew that, so you did it anyway. Do you understand how fucked up that is? Don't you dare speak to her like that, Patricia snapped. Don't you dare use that language in front of... Patricia, with all due respect, this is between Maya and me. What's between you affects our entire family. That house was an investment. Serena's been living in that awful apartment with those neighbors, and she's been struggling. Then maybe Serena should get a job. The words came out sharper than I intended. Patricia's face went red. She has a business. She has an Instagram account with 2,000 followers. That's not a business. That's a hobby. Maya stood up abruptly. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This elitism. This looking down on people who don't have your advantages. I'm not looking down on anyone. I'm stating facts. Serena is 26 years old, with no income, no job history, and no plan. And now she has a house she can't maintain, with property taxes she can't pay, with utilities she can't afford. You didn't help her, Maya. You set her up for failure. And you used my money to do it. The silence that followed was thick enough to cut. Patricia was staring at me like I'd just blasphemed in church. Maya's eyes were filling with tears, the same tears she'd used 100 times before when she wanted to win an argument without actually addressing the issue. I was suddenly, desperately tired. I've retained a lawyer, I said quietly. I'm revoking the power of attorney. And I'm contesting the mortgage. You can't do that, Patricia said. It's a legal document. Obtained through fraud. It wasn't fraud. She's your wife, and she breached her fiduciary duty. Tom thinks we have a strong case. Maya's tears stopped instantly. You're suing me? I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. I can't believe this. She shook her head, and I could see her shifting, regrouping. I can't believe you're choosing money over family. I'm choosing not to be financially abused. Again, there's a difference. Patricia stepped forward. If you do this, if you try to take that house from Serena, you'll regret it. It wasn't quite a threat, but it wasn't not a threat either. I don't want to take anything from Serena, I said. I just want my name off a mortgage I never agreed to, and my $200,000 back. That money was in a joint account. It was in my personal investment account, which Maya accessed using power of attorney, which she's no longer going to have. I turned and walked upstairs to the bedroom. My bedroom. The one I'd been sleeping in alone for the past month because Maya had been stressed and needed her own space. I pulled out a suitcase and started packing. Maya appeared in the doorway. What are you doing? I'm staying at a hotel. I'll have Tom send over divorce papers next week. David, this is over, Maya. It's been over. Maybe it was never really started. I don't know anymore. But I'm done. I walked past her, suitcase in hand, and down the stairs. Patricia was standing in the foyer, arms crossed, expression venomous. You're making a mistake, she said. No, I replied, opening the front door. I already made the mistake, 3 years ago. I'm just finally correcting it. I walked out into the afternoon sun, threw my suitcase in the car, and drove away from the house with the white picket fence and the garden nobody tended. Behind me, I could see Maya and Patricia standing in the doorway, watching. Ahead of me, a hotel, a lawyer, a war, but also, maybe, freedom. The hotel room was sterile in that way. Expensive hotels manage everything clean and anonymous, designed to be comfortable for everyone and memorable to no one. Beige walls, white linens, a view of the financial district that cost an extra $100 a night. I sat on the edge of the bed with my laptop open, surrounded by printouts I'd made at the business center downstairs. Bank statements, credit card bills, investment reports. 2 years of financial history spread across the duvet like evidence at a crime scene. Because that's what it was, really. A crime scene. I just hadn't known I was the victim until yesterday. It was 9:30 p.m. I'd spent the last 4 hours going through every transaction, every transfer, every charge, looking for patterns, looking for lies, looking for the moment when my wife decided that for richer or poorer actually meant what's yours is mine and what's mine is also mine. My phone buzzed. A text from Tom. Filed the revocation this afternoon. It's official as of 5 p.m. She can't access your accounts anymore. How are you holding up? I typed back. Found some things. Can we meet tomorrow? Early? 7 a.m.? Office? See you there. I set the phone down and went back to the spreadsheet I'd been building. Column A, date. Column B, amount. Column C, recipient. Column D, Maya's stated purpose. Column E, actual purpose. That last column was the killer. 3 months ago, $4,000 transferred to Serena. Maya told me it was for business startup costs. Turned out it was to pay off Serena's credit card debt from a Cancun vacation. 5 months ago, $8,500 for emergency car repairs for Maya's mother. Patricia's car was 12 years old, a Honda Civic that probably wasn't worth $8,000 total. I'd found the actual receipt buried in Maya's email, which I still had access to through our shared Apple account. The emergency repair was a down payment on a new Lexus. 7 months ago, $12,000 for Maya's brother James to invest in his startup. The startup was an app idea he described to me over dinner once. Something about connecting dog walkers with people who wanted to rent dogs for the day. It was nonsense then, and it was nonsense now. The money had gone to paying his rent for 6 months while he worked on the business plan. On and on. Dozens of transactions, tens of thousands of dollars, all dressed up as loans or emergencies or investments. All actually just wealth transfers from my accounts to the Ramirez family bank, and I'd let it happen. That was the part that burned. Not just that Maya had done it, but that I'd been complicit through ignorance. I'd been so busy working, so focused on building our future, that I hadn't noticed she was spending it in real time. There was a knock at the door. I froze. It was late. I wasn't expecting anyone. The knock came again, louder this time. "David, I know you're in there." Maya's voice. Of course. I considered not answering, considered calling hotel security, considered a lot of things. Then I opened the door. She was still wearing the clothes from this afternoon, but she looked smaller somehow, diminished. Her eyes were red, makeup smudged. She'd been crying, whether from genuine emotion or strategic manipulation. I couldn't tell anymore. "How did you find me?" I asked. "You used the credit card. The joint one. I got a notification." Right. The card we'd gotten for shared expenses, back when we'd shared expenses in good faith. I'd forgotten about the alerts. "What do you want, Maya?" "To talk. Can I come in?" Every instinct I had screamed no. But some part of me, the part that had loved her, that had stood at an altar and meant every word of those vows, couldn't close the door in her face. I stepped aside. She walked in and stopped when she saw the bed, the papers, the laptop with its damning spreadsheet. Her face went pale. "What is this?" "This," I said, closing the door, "is an audit. 2 years of financial history. Every dollar that left my accounts. Every story you told me about where it was going. Every lie. David. The car repair. That was actually a down payment on your mother's Lexus. The business loan to James. That was actually 6 months of rent. The $4,000 to Serena for her startup that she spent in Cancun." I picked up one of the statements. "February 14th, Valentine's Day. I gave you $1,000 for that necklace you wanted, the Tiffany one. You told me you bought it. But there's no charge to Tiffany on any of our cards. You know where there is a charge? To your mother's credit card. $700, 3 days later." Her mouth opened, closed. No words came. You didn't buy the necklace at all, did you? You just took my money and gave it to your mother. And then you wore some cheap knockoff and let me believe I'd bought you something special. It's not like that. Then what is it like? My voice stayed level, calm, which somehow made it worse. Explain it to me, Maya. Help me understand how this isn't exactly what it looks like. She sat down on the edge of the bed, careful not to disturb the papers. When she spoke, her voice was small. My family needed help. Your family is not my responsibility. They are. That's what family means. You help each other. I did help. Constantly. For 3 years. I've been writing checks and wiring money and paying for things, and every single time, you told me it was the last time, that things would get better, that they just needed to get over this one hurdle. I sat down across from her in the desk chair. But it's never the last time, because your family doesn't have a temporary cash flow problem. They have a fundamental relationship with money problem, and you've been enabling it with my money. Because you have it. The anger was back now, flashing in her eyes. Because you're sitting on millions while my mother works 2 jobs, while Serena struggles to find herself, while James tries to build something. Your mother works 2 jobs because she bought a Lexus she can't afford. Serena struggles because she refuses to get an actual job. James isn't building anything except debt. And none of it is my fault or my responsibility to fix. But you could fix it, don't you see? You could make all of their problems go away, and it wouldn't even affect your life. There it was. The fundamental equation. My financial security meant nothing because I had more than I needed. Their wants became needs because they had less than they wanted. And somehow, in Maya's mind, that created an obligation. When was the house decided? I asked quietly. What? The house? For Serena. When did you start planning it? She looked away. A few months ago. Before or after I said no to lending James another $10,000? Her silence was answer enough. This was punishment, I said, the realization settling over me like cold rain. I set a boundary, and you decided to blow right past it. You knew I'd never agree to buying Serena a house, so you just did it anyway. Used the power of attorney I gave you in good faith, forged my signature on documents I never saw, and presented it to me as a done deal. I didn't forge now. You know what I mean. Don't play semantic games. I leaned forward. Maya, did you ever love me? Or was I just a retirement plan for your entire family? The question hung between us. Outside, I could hear the city sirens, traffic, the ambient hum of life continuing, while mine came apart. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. I did love you. I do. But not more than you love the idea of rescuing everyone else. She didn't deny it. I stood up and walked to the window. 14 floors below, people were going about their lives, heading to dinner, catching trains, living in relationships where love and money weren't a zero-sum game. Tom filed the revocation today, I said without turning around. You can't access my accounts anymore. I know. I tried to log in. Of course she had. He's also preparing a lawsuit. Breach of fiduciary duty. Fraud. Demand for return of the $200,000. And divorce papers. I heard her breath catch. David, please. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can... No. I turned to face her. We can't. Because fixing this would require you to understand that what you did was wrong. Not just tactically wrong, but fundamentally wrong. And I don't think you believe that. I think you believe you were justified. My family. Your family is not more important than basic honesty, than partnership, than treating your husband like a person instead of an ATM. She stood up, her face hardening. The tears were gone now, replaced by something colder. You're going to regret this. Is that a threat? It's a fact. You think you can just walk away? You think you can sue us and everything will be fine? You have no idea what you're starting. Then I guess we're both about to find out. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. Then she stopped, hand on the handle, and turned back. You know what your problem is, David? You think money is more important than people. You're so obsessed with protecting your precious savings that you can't see you're destroying a family. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just refusing to bankrupt myself to enable your family's dysfunction. There's a difference. We'll see what the judge thinks. She left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the prints on the wall. I stood there for a long moment, heart pounding, hands shaking slightly. Then I sat back down at the laptop and added a new entry to my spreadsheet. Today's date. The transaction at the business center, $47.50 for printing. Description: evidence compilation for divorce proceedings. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Is this David Chen? A woman's voice. Professional, clipped. Yes. Who's this? My name is Rachel Winters. I'm an attorney representing the Ramirez family. I've been asked to inform you that if you proceed with revoking the mortgage or attempting to reclaim the funds used for the down payment, we'll be filing suit for breach of marital contract and intentional infliction of emotional distress. I laughed. Actually laughed. Breach of marital contract? That's not even a real thing. We'll also be seeking full spousal support based on the lifestyle Maya's become accustomed to during your marriage. Given your income, we believe 5 years of support at $7,500 per month is reasonable. 5 years, $7,500 a month. That was another $450,000. You've got to be kidding me. I'm quite serious, Mr. Chen. Additionally, we'll be arguing that the house was purchased with marital funds and therefore constitutes community property. As such, Maya is entitled to 50% of the equity, which we calculate at approximately $60,000 based on the current market valuation. The house is in Serena's name. The down payment came from marital assets. The courts will have to determine how that affects the property division. But I wanted to give you fair warning that if you pursue this aggressively, we will respond in kind. Let me be very clear, Miss Winters. I didn't start this war, but I'm sure as hell going to finish it. Have your clients bring their best case. Because I've got 2 years of documentation showing exactly where every dollar went, and I don't think it's going to paint them in the sympathetic light they're hoping for. There was a pause. Then, I'll pass that along. Have a good evening, Mr. Chen. She hung up. I sat there, phone in hand, and felt something shift inside me. Up until this moment, some part of me had hoped this could be resolved quietly. That Maya would recognize she'd crossed a line, that we could negotiate a fair settlement, that we could end this with dignity. But they'd hired a lawyer. They were threatening to sue. They were positioning themselves as victims, while simultaneously trying to extract another $500,000 from me. They wanted war? Fine. I pulled up Tom's number and called. It rang 4 times before he answered, voice groggy. David, it's almost 11. They hired a lawyer, Rachel Winters. She just called me with threats. I heard rustling, the sound of Tom sitting up in bed.
What kind of threats?
Spousal support, community property claims, emotional distress, the whole arsenal. Okay. His voice was clearer now, focused. Okay. First thing, do not communicate with their attorney without me present. Forward me her contact information. Second, I want you to write down everything you just told me, while it's fresh. Time of call, exact words if you can remember them, your response. Third, we're moving up the timeline. I'll have the divorce papers ready by Friday. Good. David, I need you to understand something. This is going to get nasty. They're going to try to paint you as controlling, greedy, vindictive. They're going to tell anyone who will listen that you're abandoning your wife's family in their time of need. Are you prepared for that? I looked at the spreadsheet on my screen, at the evidence spread across the bed, at 2 years of manipulation and exploitation documented in black and white. Yeah, I said. I'm prepared. Then let's go to war. After we hung up, I spent another hour organizing the documents, creating folders, scanning receipts, building the kind of comprehensive record that would make it very, very difficult for the Ramirez family to claim they were innocent victims. At some point, I realized I was smiling. Not because any of this was funny, not because I was enjoying the destruction of my marriage, but because for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't the one being played. I wasn't the one operating on partial information while someone else held all the cards. I'd spent my career in negotiations. I knew how to build a case. I knew how to document everything. I knew how to be patient, methodical, and utterly ruthless when the situation called for it. And this situation? This was calling for it. I saved the spreadsheet, backed it up to 3 different cloud services, and emailed copies to Tom for good measure. Then I finally let myself lie down, fully clothed, on top of the hotel duvet. Outside, the city glittered. Inside, I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Not quite peace. Not yet. But clarity. Cold, hard, unshakable clarity. Tomorrow, I'd go to Tom's office. We'd file papers. We'd start the process. Tonight, I'd sleep like someone who'd finally stopped lying to himself about what his marriage had really been. And if the Ramirez family wanted to threaten me with lawsuits and emotional distress claims, they were welcome to try. I had receipts. Tom's office at 7 a.m. was a different place than at 9. Quieter. The receptionist hadn't arrived yet. The phones weren't ringing. Just the 2 of us in his conference room. Coffee going cold in paper cups, surrounded by documents that told the story of my marriage's slow-motion collapse. "Walk me through this again," Tom said, pointing at the spreadsheet I'd sent him last night. "The Cancun trip. You're certain Maya told you it was for business startup costs?" I have the text messages. I pulled them up on my phone. See? March 15th. She writes, "Serena needs $4K for LLC filing fees and initial inventory for her business. Can you transfer it today? She has a meeting with a supplier tomorrow." And the actual charges? I slid over a credit card statement, Serena's name at the top, something I'd pulled from the shared family Dropbox that I apparently still had access to. All-inclusive resort in Cancun, 4 nights. Charged March 18th, $3,800. Tom made a note. This is good. This establishes a pattern of deception. What else? I had plenty else. For the next 2 hours, we went through everything. Every loan that became a gift. Every emergency that wasn't. Every investment that evaporated. Tom took notes in his careful lawyer's handwriting, occasionally stopping to ask questions, to probe for weaknesses in the narrative, to play devil's advocate. "Their attorney is going to argue that you knew about all of this," he said during a break, "that by not objecting at the time, you gave implied consent." I didn't know the money was being misused. Maya explicitly lied about where it was going. Can you prove she lied? Or did she just omit certain details? I pulled up another text thread. This one from 5 months ago. About Patricia's emergency car repair. "Maya, Mom's transmission is shot. Mechanic says $8,500 to fix, or the car is basically totaled. Can you help? She needs it for work." That seems high. Did she get a second opinion? "She's been going to this mechanic for 10 years. He's honest." "She's freaking out, David. She can't afford to be without a car." "Okay, I'll transfer it today. Thank you. You're saving her life. Love you." I showed Tom the thread, then pulled up the dealership receipt. She didn't fix the transmission. She bought a new car. And when I asked Maya about it later, casually, said I saw Patricia driving something different, she told me her mom had decided to upgrade with her own savings. Never mentioned my $8,500 was the down payment. Tom leaned back in his chair. "That's fraud. Clear misrepresentation with intent to deceive. And there are a dozen more just like it." "Good. The more we have, the stronger our case for breach of fiduciary duty. Now, let's talk about the house. Have you seen it?" "No." "We should. Today, I want photographs. I want to document its condition, the neighborhood, everything. Because when we're arguing that this purchase wasn't in your best interest, I want to show the judge exactly what your money bought." "You think they'll try to claim it was an investment? That I'd benefit somehow?" "I think they'll claim anything that might work, so we need to be thorough." He checked his watch. "I've got a call at 10, but I'm free after lunch. 2 p.m., work for you?" "I'll make it work." We spent another hour discussing strategy. The divorce papers were ready. Tom had worked late last night drafting them. We'd file today. We'd also file the lawsuit against Maya and Serena for the down payment. though Tom warned me that recovering it would be an uphill battle. Even if we win, if they don't have the money, you can't squeeze blood from a stone, he said. But winning matters for other reasons. It establishes the pattern. It shows the court that this wasn't a good faith financial decision. What about the mortgage itself? That's trickier. You authorized the power of attorney. The bank acted in good faith based on that authority. We might be able to argue that Maya exceeded her authority. But he trailed off, shaking his head. The best case scenario is we get you out of the mortgage by forcing Serena to refinance in her own name. Worst case, you're stuck with it until the house is sold and you can recoup some of the loss in the divorce settlement. She can't refinance. She has no income. Then the house gets sold, which, honestly, is probably the best outcome anyway. You get out from under the mortgage, recoup whatever equity exists, move on with your life. It sounded simple when he said it like that. Clean. But I knew better. The Ramirez family wasn't going to let that house go without a fight. Not when they'd convinced themselves that my money was their money, that my success was their safety net, that my boundaries were just suggestions. I left Tom's office at 9:30 and drove to work. My actual job, the one I'd been neglecting for the past 48 hours while my life imploded. I was a supply chain consultant for a firm that worked with Fortune 500 companies. Good money, stressful hours, the kind of career that required constant attention. I'd been letting everything slide. My assistant, Jennifer, looked up when I walked in. "Oh, thank God. I was starting to think you'd been kidnapped. You haven't answered emails since Tuesday. Family emergency," I said, which wasn't exactly a lie. "Everything okay?" "Getting there." I gave her what I hoped was a convincing smile. "What's on fire?" The Patterson account is freaking out about delivery timelines. Anderson wants to move up the quarterly review to next week. And someone from a law firm called asking about your employment and income verification. That last one made me stop. What law firm? Winters and Associates? Rachel Winters, Maya's attorney, already digging into my finances, my income, building her case for spousal support. If they call again, refer them to Tom Bradshaw's office. Don't give them any information. Jennifer's eyebrows went up. "Are you being sued?" "It's complicated, but yes, probably. And I'm also suing some people. It's a whole thing." "Jesus, David." "Yeah." I headed into my office. "Can you hold my calls for an hour? I need to catch up on emails." But I didn't catch up on emails. Instead, I sat at my desk and pulled up the Ramirez family's social media. Something I should have done days ago. Serena's Instagram was a masterclass in performative struggle. Photos of her office, a corner of a coffee shop with her laptop and a motivational quote. Selfies with captions about building an empire and manifesting abundance. A post from 3 weeks ago about how the universe provides for those who believe. No mention of the house, though. Interesting. I scrolled further back. 2 months ago, there was a photo. Serena and Maya, arms around each other, champagne glasses raised. The caption read, "To new beginnings and sisters who make dreams come true. I love you," at Maya Chen. The photo's date, 3 days before Maya signed the mortgage papers. They've been celebrating me buying a house I didn't know I was buying. Celebrating their successful manipulation of a man who'd thought he was building a partnership, not funding a dynasty. I took a screenshot and sent it to Tom. Then I went to Maya's Instagram. It was more curated than Serena's professional photos, aesthetic cohesion, the kind of feed that probably took her an hour a day to maintain. Recent posts were about self-care and setting boundaries and knowing your worth. Nothing about our marriage falling apart. Nothing about her husband moving out. Just her at yoga class, her at brunch, her looking contemplative in front of a sunset with a caption about releasing what no longer serves you. I was what no longer served her. The realization should have hurt more than it did. Her last post before the house debacle was from 2 weeks ago. A photo of us together, me and Maya, at some charity gala my company had sponsored. We looked happy. I was in a tuxedo. She was in a black dress that cost $1,500. The caption, "Grateful for this man and the life we're building together. Number blessed. Number power couple. Number marriage goals." The comments were full of heart emojis, and congratulations, and people saying we were relationship goals. None of them knew that the woman in the photo had already signed papers committing her husband to $1 million mortgage he didn't agree to, that the life we're building was being built on fraud. I closed Instagram and finally forced myself to deal with work emails. 2 hours of putting out fires, rescheduling meetings, apologizing for delays, the mundane machinery of professional life continuing while my personal life burned. At 1 p.m., Tom texted, "Ready when you are. Address is 3847 Meadowbrook Lane, Riverside. Meet there." I packed up and headed out. Jennifer gave me a concerned look as I left. "I'm fine," I told her. "Really?" "You don't look fine." "I will be. Eventually." The drive to Riverside took 40 minutes. It was a weekday afternoon, so traffic was light. I followed GPS directions through increasingly suburban streets until I pulled up in front of 3847 Meadowbrook Lane. And there it was. My $920,000 investment. It was nice. I had to give them that. A Spanish-style house with terracotta tiles and white stucco. 3 bedrooms, like Maya had said. A yard that could have been lovely with some work. In a decent neighborhood, the kind where people mowed their lawns and painted their shutters, and probably had block parties. Tom's car was already there. He was standing on the sidewalk with a camera, taking photos of the exterior. "What do you think?" he asked as I walked up. "I think it's worth about $600,000, not $920. The appraisal came in at $650. So yeah, they overpaid. Substantially. Which helps our case that this wasn't a sound financial decision." We walked around the property. The backyard was overgrown, the fence needed repair, and one of the windows had a crack in it. Tom photographed everything. Then we went to the front door, and he knocked. No answer. He knocked again.
We know Serena's supposed to be living here. Maya told you that, right?
That was the whole point, getting Serena out of her awful apartment. But no one came to the door. Tom tried the handle locked. We peered through windows. The house was empty. Not just empty of people, empty of furniture, empty of any sign that anyone had ever moved in. "Huh," Tom said. We walked back to our cars. Tom was frowning, thinking, so either Serena hasn't moved in yet, or she never intended to live here. We need to check property records, see if the title's been transferred yet, see if there are any liens or other mortgages, because if this was never about Serena needing a place to live, then what was it about? Tom's expression was grim. Investment property? Rental income? Maybe they were planning to flip it? Any number of things, none of which involve it being your responsibility. We stood there in the afternoon sun, looking at this empty house in this quiet neighborhood, and I felt something cold settle in my chest. This wasn't about helping family. This was never about helping family. This was about using my credit, my money, my financial security to build wealth for the Ramirez family. And they dressed it up in the language of need, of struggle, of family obligation to make me complicit in my own exploitation. "I want to know where Serena actually is," I said. "Can we find that out?" "I'll have an investigator look into it. Shouldn't be hard, people leave digital trails." Tom put his camera away. "David, I think this is bigger than we thought. I think we need to look at every property transaction the Ramirez family has made in the past few years. Because if this is a pattern, you think there are other properties? I think it's worth checking." We headed back to our cars. Tom would go back to his office and start digging. I would go. Where? Not home. The hotel. My temporary refuge. But first, I made a detour to Patricia's house, the one I'd helped make mortgage payments on last year when she'd had unexpected medical expenses. The one in the nice part of town, with the view and the 2-car garage. I parked across the street and just looked at it for a while, trying to remember all the times I'd been here for family dinners. All the times Patricia had hugged me and called me Mijo, and told me how grateful she was to have me in the family. All the times I'd believed her. The garage door was open. And there, parked inside, was Patricia's Lexus, the one bought with my emergency car repair money. Gleaming silver, probably $50,000 new. Next to it was another car, a BMW, also new.
I took out my phone and snapped a photo, then another of the house number. Then I texted them both to Tom with a message. Patricia's house. The Lexus I told you about. Also, a BMW I've never seen before. Can we find out who owns it? His response came 30 seconds later, already on it. I drove back to the hotel, feeling like I was peeling back layers of an onion, and every layer revealed something worse underneath. The house in Riverside. The empty house that no one was living in. Patricia's mysterious second car. The pattern of lies and misdirection. How deep did this go? How long had it been happening? And what else didn't I know? Back in my hotel room, I opened my laptop and started a new document. I titled it Timeline. Then I began working backward through my marriage, noting every financial request, every family dinner where someone had mentioned money troubles, every conversation where Maya had framed her family's needs as urgent and my resources as abundant. Year 1. Small requests. A few hundred here and there. Help with Patricia's insurance deductible. A loan to James for job interview clothes. Reasonable things that I'd been happy to help with. Year 2. The requests got bigger, more frequent. And Maya started framing them differently, not as requests, but as expectations. Family helps family. We're building a life together. What's mine is yours. Year 3. The demands. Not even disguised as requests anymore. The power of attorney, the joint accounts, the slow erosion of boundaries until there weren't any left. And now, the house, the mortgage, the final, massive overstep that had finally woken me up. I worked until my eyes burned, until the sun set and the city lights came on outside my window, building the timeline, connecting the dots, seeing the pattern that I'd missed while I was living through it. My phone rang. Tom, you're not going to believe this, he said without preamble. Try me. Serena doesn't live in Riverside. She lives in Marina del Rey. Waterfront condo, 1,500 square feet, built in 2019. I felt my stomach drop. How much? Zillow estimates $800,000. And David? The property records show it was purchased 2 years ago. Cash sale. $650,000. $650,000 in cash 2 years ago. Where did she get that kind of money? I asked, though part of me already knew. That's the question, isn't it? I've got someone pulling her financial records legally through discovery once we file. But David, I think your money has been funding more than just emergency car repairs. We talked for another few minutes, making plans, discussing strategy. Then I hung up and sat there in the darkening hotel room, surrounded by evidence of my own willful blindness. The Ramirez family hadn't just taken advantage of me. They'd built an empire on my back, and tomorrow we were going to start tearing it down. The courthouse steps were granite, cold, even through my shoes. I stood there at 8:45 on a Friday morning, briefcase in hand, watching lawyers and litigants stream past me into the building. All these people, all these disputes, all these lives coming apart in a building designed to look dignified while hearts broke inside it. Tom appeared at 8:50, carrying 2 boxes of documents. Ready? He asked. I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. Inside, the courthouse had that particular echo that government buildings always have, voices bouncing off marble, footsteps amplified, everything sounding more important than it probably was. We took an elevator to the 3rd floor, walked down a hallway that smelled like old paper and floor wax, and entered the clerk's office. The woman behind the counter was maybe 60, with reading glasses on a chain and the expression of someone who'd seen every possible human drama play out in paperwork form. Help you? She asked. Tom slid the first set of documents across the counter, filing for divorce, Chen versus Chen, and a civil complaint. He added the second set, Chen versus Ramirez, Etta Lee, fraud, breach of fiduciary duty, and demand for return of funds. She took the papers, scanned the first page of each, and stamped them with the kind of mechanical efficiency that comes from doing the same action 10,000 times. The stamp made a sound like a judge's gavel. Final, irrevocable. Filing fee is $435 for the divorce, $300 for the civil complaint.
Cash or card? I handed her my credit card. Watched her run it. Watched her hand me the receipts. $735 to end a marriage and start a war. We left the courthouse 20 minutes later. Everything official. Tom's phone buzzed immediately. Rachel Winters, he said, looking at the screen. Maya's attorney. They've been served. That was fast. What happens now? Now, we wait for their response. They have 30 days to file an answer to the divorce petition, 21 for the civil complaint. In the meantime, we keep digging. He stopped on the sidewalk, the morning sun hitting us directly. The investigator got back to me this morning about Serena's condo, and the down payment came from an account in Patricia's name, but the mortgage is in Serena's name alone, which means either Serena somehow came up with a $100,000 down payment, which she didn't, or someone gave it to her. And the timing is interesting. The condo was purchased March 2023. You know what else happened in March 2023? I thought back. March 2023. 2 years ago, Maya and I had just gotten engaged. We'd been celebrating, planning the wedding. I'd been happy. Stupidly, blindly happy. I don't remember. You made a withdrawal from your investment account. $115,000. Maya told you it was for wedding expenses, correct? The memory hit me like cold water. The venue. She said the venue required full payment up front. I thought it was expensive, but she said it was the only place available for the date we wanted. How much did the venue actually cost? I'd have to check the final invoice, but I think it was around $40,000. So where did the other $75,000 go? I felt something shift in my chest. Not quite anger yet. More like the feeling you get when you're solving a puzzle and suddenly see the whole picture. Serena's down payment. That would be my guess. We'll know for sure once we get the financial records in discovery. But David, if this is what I think it is, if Maya's been systematically funneling your money to her family for years, we're not talking about a few misunderstandings. We're talking about organized fraud. We walked to a coffee shop across from the courthouse. Inside, it was full of people who looked like they'd just come from their own legal proceedings. A woman crying quietly in a corner booth, a man in a suit reviewing documents with grim concentration, a couple sitting in hostile silence. We found a table in the back. Tom pulled out his laptop. I want to show you something, he said, opening a spreadsheet. This is every significant withdrawal or transfer from your accounts in the past 3 years. I've color-coded them. Green is legitimate expenses, mortgage, utilities, things you both benefited from. Yellow is questionable, things Maya claimed were for one purpose that might have been for another. Red is confirmed fraud, things she explicitly lied about. The spreadsheet was a sea of yellow and red. Jesus, I muttered. It gets worse. Watch. He clicked a tab. A new sheet appeared, this one showing dates and amounts. These are property transactions in the Ramirez family. Patricia's house refinanced in July 2022, pulled out $100,000 in equity. James's condo purchased in January 2023. Serena's condo March 2023. And now the Riverside house. James has a condo in Pasadena, 2-bedroom, bought for $450, which in that market was actually a decent deal. Down payment was $90,000. I stared at the numbers. Where did he get $90,000? I'm guessing from you. October 2022, Maya told you that James needed $50,000 for his startup. Remember? You transferred it. She said it was for app development, for hiring a programmer. There was no programmer. There was no app. There was a down payment on a condo. Tom closed the laptop. David, I think the Ramirez family has been using you as their personal bank for years. Maya's been the intermediary, making up stories about emergencies and investments and opportunities, and funneling your money to her family to buy assets. Assets in their names. Exactly. You paid for it, but they own it. And now, with the divorce, they're going to argue that none of this matters, because they'll claim it was all gifts, voluntary transfers made during the marriage. But I didn't know. I know, and we'll prove that, but it's going to be a fight. He leaned back. The good news is that fraud has no statute of limitations in California when it comes to community property. We can go back and unwind every transaction where Maya lied about the purpose of the funds. The bad news is, it's going to take time and money. How much money? Legal fees? If this goes to trial, if they fight every step of the way, you're looking at 100,000, maybe more. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. So, I'm going to spend $100,000 to prove that they stole 500,000 from me. Maybe more than 500. We won't know until we have all the records. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is what you want? To destroy your own wife? To take a house from a girl who's just trying to survive? You should be ashamed. I showed it to Tom. He frowned. Who is that? No idea. Not a number I recognize. Another text came through. Same number. Maya loved you. She trusted you. And this is how you repay her? By sicking lawyers on her family? You're pathetic. Block it, Tom said, and screenshot both messages first. This is harassment. I did. Then my phone rang. Patricia. I showed Tom the screen. Don't answer, he said. Let it go to voicemail. I watched it ring. 4 times. 5. Then it stopped. A moment later, the voicemail notification appeared. I played it on speaker. Patricia's voice came through, sharp and angry. David, you need to stop this nonsense right now. You're embarrassing yourself and hurting this family. Maya made one mistake, one. And you're acting like she committed a crime. That house was supposed to be a blessing for Serena, and instead you're turning it into some kind of legal nightmare. If you had any decency, you'd drop this lawsuit and honor your commitments. We are family. You made vows. Or do those mean nothing to you? The message ended. Tom's expression was carefully neutral. Save that too. It's good to have a record of them contacting you directly while you have legal representation. More texts started coming in. Different numbers this time. I recognized one as James's. Bro, what are you doing? You're really going to sue my mom and sister? Over money you have plenty of? That's cold, man. I thought you were better than this. Then, I can't believe you're doing this to me. After everything Maya's done for you. After how she stood by you. You're showing your true colors, and they're ugly. Then more unknown numbers. Friends of the family. I assumed the smear campaign was starting. You're a disgrace. Hope the money is worth losing your soul. Maya deserves so much better than you. Tom watched me block each number, his jaw tight. This is witness tampering and harassment. We're documenting all of this. It's actually helping our case shows they're coordinated, that they're trying to pressure you to drop the suit. They're going scorched earth because they're scared. People don't act like this when they think they're in the right. They act like this when they know they're caught. My phone rang again. Maya this time. Against Tom's advice, I answered, put it on speaker. David. Her voice was thick with tears. David, please, please stop this. You're killing me. You're destroying everything. You destroyed it, I said, my voice flat. When you forged my signature on $1 million mortgage, I didn't forge anything. I had power of attorney, which you abused, systematically, for years. That's not we're married. Married people share things. They help each other's families. Help, yes. Fraud, no. There's a difference, Maya. I can't believe you're doing this. Her voice broke. I can't believe you'd rather have money than a marriage. I'd rather have honesty, which you never gave me. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. No, we can't. It's over. David. I hung up. My hands were shaking. Tom pushed his coffee toward me. Drink something. Breathe. I did both. Around us, the coffee shop continued its normal rhythm. The espresso machine hissed. Someone's phone rang. A child laughed. The world kept spinning, while mine felt like it was fragmenting. They're going to keep this up, Tom said quietly. The calls, the texts, the emotional manipulation. They're going to try every angle to get you to back down. You need to be prepared for that. I am. Are you? Because it's one thing to say you're ready for war when you're in my office looking at spreadsheets.
It's another thing when your wife is crying on the phone, when her family is calling you a monster, when your social circle starts to believe their version of events. I looked at him. Do you think I'm wrong for doing this? I think you're protecting yourself from people who took advantage of you. I think you're well within your rights, both legally and morally. But I also think you need to be realistic about what the next few months are going to look like. This isn't going to be clean or easy. They're going to fight dirty. Then I'll fight dirtier. Tom smiled slightly. That's the spirit. But remember, we fight dirty with documentation, with facts, with evidence, not with emotion, not with revenge. We stay professional, we stay focused, and we let the truth do the work. We spent another hour going over strategy, next steps, what to expect. When Tom's phone rang his office, we wrapped up. I've got a call, he said. But David, go home, get some rest, and turn off your phone for a few hours. You don't need to read their messages or answer their calls. Let them scream into the void. I left the coffee shop and sat in my car for a long moment before starting the engine. The morning had turned hot, the kind of dry heat that Los Angeles gets in late summer. Through the windshield, I could see palm trees swaying, people walking past in sunglasses, life continuing as normal. I pulled out my phone and opened social media one more time. A mistake, probably, but I couldn't help myself. Maya had posted, 30 minutes ago, a photo of her sitting on her back patio, looking contemplative. The caption read, "Going through something really difficult right now. Learning that you can't control how others choose to act, only how you respond. Choosing grace over bitterness. Choosing love over money. Choosing family over ego. Thank you to everyone who's reached out with support. It means everything. Number divorce journey. Number healing vibes. Number money isn't everything." The comments were already rolling in. Hundreds of them. "You're so strong. His loss, girl. Money over marriage? What a joke. You deserve better. Stay strong, queen." Someone had even written, "I never liked him. Always thought he was too good for his own good, you know? Like he was keeping score." I was keeping score. Because I was the only one who seemed to realize there was a game being played. I closed the app and drove back to the hotel. In the lobby, I ran into someone I knew, Keith, a guy I'd worked with on a project last year. His face lit up when he saw me. "David, man, I heard about you and Maya. I'm sorry, that's rough." News travels fast. Social media, man, she posted something this morning and people are talking. "Hey, if you need anything, I'm good. Thanks though." Sure. Just, people are saying some things about money, about her family. I don't know the details, but he looked uncomfortable. Just wanted you to know that not everyone believes everything they hear online. I felt something cold in my chest. What are people saying? That you're suing her family over helping them buy a house? That you're worth millions and you're nickel and diming them over what's basically pocket change to you? That you're... I don't know, man. The word financial abuse came up. Financial abuse. They were accusing me of financial abuse, when they were the ones who'd systematically robbed me for years. Keith, it's complicated, but I promise you, whatever version you're hearing online isn't the full story. I figured. You've always been a straight shooter. Just giving you a heads up that the narrative is out there. After he left, I went up to my room and finally turned off my phone, lay down on the bed, stared at the ceiling. The smear campaign had started. By tomorrow, probably half of our social circle would believe I was a heartless miser who'd abandoned his struggling wife and her desperate family. The other half would reserve judgment but wonder. After all, there's no smoke without fire, right? None of them would know about the empty house in Riverside, about Serena's waterfront condo, about Patricia's 2 cars and James's condo in Pasadena, about the years of systematic lies and manipulation. And even if I told them, would they believe me? Or would I sound like someone making excuses, trying to justify abandoning his family obligations? There was a knock at the door. For a wild second, I thought it might be Maya again. But when I looked through the peephole,
It was just hotel housekeeping.
Not today, thank you. I called through the door. No problem, sir. I went back to the bed, lay there in the silence of my temporary home, in this anonymous room that cost $180 a night, and thought about the house in Riverside that was costing me $6,000 a month. My phone was off, but I could still feel its weight. All those messages, all those accusations, all those people who thought they knew the story because they'd read Maya's Instagram caption and seen her artfully filtered photo. This was going to be the hardest part. Not the legal battle, not even losing the money. It was going to be watching the world believe her version of events. Watching myself be painted as the villain in a story where I was actually the victim. But I had something they didn't have. Evidence, documentation, the truth. And Tom was right eventually. The truth would do the work. I just had to be patient enough to let it. Outside my window, the city hummed. Cars and sirens and construction and life. Somewhere out there, Maya was probably crying on her mother's couch, surrounded by family who'd stroke her hair and tell her she'd done nothing wrong. That David was the problem. That money had corrupted me, that I'd changed. Maybe I had changed. Maybe I'd finally grown a spine. I fell asleep there on top of the covers, still in my suit from the courthouse, and dreamed of empty houses and stamped documents and the sound of a gavel coming down. Justice, in the abstract, always sounds clean. In practice, it's messy. But I was done being afraid of the mess. 3 weeks later, I sat in a conference room on the 18th floor of a downtown office building, watching Rachel Winters organize her notes with the kind of precision that probably cost her clients $400 an hour. Across the table from me sat Maya. She wouldn't look at me directly. Instead, she studied her hands, her water glass, the abstract art on the walls, anything but my face. She'd lost weight. Dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. Part of me felt bad about that. The other part remembered the empty house in Riverside. "Let's begin," Rachel said, her voice crisp. "This is the deposition of David Chen, taken in the matter of Chen versus Ramirez. Et Ali, Mr. Chen, you've been sworn in. Do you understand that you're under oath?" "Yes." "And you have counsel present?" Tom nodded from beside me. "Thomas Bradshaw, representing the petitioner." Rachel smiled the way sharks smile before they bite. "Excellent. Mr. Chen, let's start with the basics. How long were you married to Maya Ramirez Chen?" 3 years. Almost 3 years. We separated last month. "And during that marriage, would you say you were the primary breadwinner?" "Yes." "How much do you earn annually?" "Last year, $280,000 before taxes." "And Maya?" "She didn't have steady employment. Some freelance graphic design work, maybe $20,000 a year." Rachel made a note. "So you made approximately 14 times what your wife made. Would you say that created a power imbalance in your relationship?" Tom leaned forward. "Objection. Calls for speculation and isn't relevant to the claims." "I'm establishing financial dynamics," Rachel said smoothly. "Mr. Chen, did you ever use your income disparity to control your wife's spending or decisions?" "No." "Did you require her to ask permission before making purchases?" "No." "Did you monitor her credit card statements?" "No." I kept my voice level. We had a joint account for household expenses. Beyond that, she spent what she wanted. "And did you spend what you wanted?" "I saved what I wanted." "There's a difference." Rachel's smile widened slightly. "Saved. Yes. Let's talk about that. You have approximately how much in savings and investments?" "Objection," Tom said. "He's not obligated to disclose exact amounts outside of formal discovery." "It's a simple question," Rachel countered. "Approximately 1.8 million, I said. Tom shot me a look, but I ignored it. Most of which I had before I married Maya. Most, but not all. Correct. I continued saving during the marriage. While your wife had no significant savings of her own, did that strike you as unfair? I earned it. Why would that be unfair? Because marriage is a partnership, Mr. Chen. When one partner hoards resources while the other struggles. I didn't hoard anything.
I paid all our major expenses: mortgage, cars, insurance, vacations. Maya's income was essentially discretionary. She could have saved if she wanted to, but she was supporting her family. There it was, the narrative they were building. Poor Maya, generous and selfless, supporting her struggling family while her rich husband sat on millions. She was spending my money supporting her family, I corrected, without my knowledge or consent, in many cases. Rachel flipped through her notes. Let's talk about that. The house in Riverside. You claim Maya purchased it without your permission? I claim that because it's true, but you'd given her power of attorney for emergencies, for handling routine financial matters when I was traveling, not for making million-dollar real estate purchases. The document doesn't specify those limitations. The document assumes good faith. It assumes the person I trusted wouldn't abuse that trust. Maya flinched. Rachel didn't miss it. Abuse. That's a strong word. Did Maya ever physically harm you, Mr. Chen? That's not what I am. Did she threaten you? Coerce you? Financial fraud is abuse. Is it? Or is it a wife making what she believed were sound financial decisions for her family's benefit? Tom cut in. If we're done with the semantic games, I'd like to redirect. David, walk us through what you believed the power of attorney was for. I took a breath. I travel frequently for work. Sometimes I'm in meetings all day. Sometimes I'm on international flights. Maya was supposed to be able to pay bills if I was unreachable, make medical decisions if something happened to me, handle routine maintenance on the house, that kind of thing. And did you ever discuss using it for major purchases? Never. Did you discuss buying property for her family members? Absolutely not. I would never have agreed to that. Rachel jumped back in. But you did give money to the Ramirez family, repeatedly. Loans, gifts, emergency funds, isn't that correct? When I was asked directly, yes. When Maya told me what the money was for, and I agreed to help. So you had a pattern of supporting her family. I had a pattern of believing what my wife told me, which, it turns out, was a mistake. Mr. Chen, do you have children? No. Do you plan to have children? Tom objected. Relevance? I'm establishing Mr. Chen's understanding of family obligations, Rachel said. Mr. Chen, I don't see how that matters. Because those of us who have families, who understand what it means to care for people beyond ourselves, might view your actions differently than someone who's only ever had to think about himself. The implication hung in the air. I was selfish, childish, incapable of understanding real responsibility because I'd never had to sacrifice for kids. My parents are still alive, I said quietly. I helped them financially. I paid for my father's knee surgery last year, $40,000 that insurance didn't cover. I paid off my mother's car loan when my dad had his hours cut. I understand family obligations. What I don't understand is being lied to. Allegedly lied to, Rachel corrected. No, actually lied to. We can prove it. Can you? Because from where I'm sitting, this looks like a man who made generous decisions during his marriage and is now having regrets as the marriage ends. Buyer's remorse, if you will. Tom slid a folder across the table. This is the text message thread from March 15th of this year. Maya explicitly told David that $4,000 was needed for Serena's business startup costs. LLC filing fees and initial inventory were specifically mentioned. Rachel opened the folder, scanned the messages. Her expression didn't change. And those $4,000 were spent on a vacation to Cancun. We have the credit card receipts. Perhaps the LLC was filed and inventory purchased in addition to the vacation. There is no LLC, Tom said. There's no business registration in Serena's name in California or any neighboring state. We checked. She could be operating under a DBA. There's no DBA either. Rachel, you know as well as I do that this was fraud. The money was requested under false pretenses. Rachel closed the folder. Or it was a miscommunication. Or plans changed. Or Serena made different business decisions.
You're asking this court to criminalize normal family financial dynamics. There's nothing normal about systematically lying to obtain funds. They went back and forth like this for a while. Legal arguments, procedural objections, the kind of verbal sparring that probably looked impressive but didn't change the underlying facts. Finally, Rachel turned back to me. Mr. Chen, let's talk about your expectations of marriage. When you married Maya, what did you think you were signing up for? Partnership, mutual support, honesty. And you don't think asking you to help house her sister qualified as partnership? Asking would have been partnership. Forging my signature on a mortgage was fraud. She didn't forge. Semantics. She used power of attorney in a way she knew I'd never approve. That's fraud in everything but name. Maya finally spoke. Her voice was small, broken. I thought you loved me. Everyone stopped. Rachel put a hand on Maya's arm, either comfort or a signal to shut up. I couldn't tell. I did love you, I said. And it was true. Past tense. The love had been real. The betrayal had killed it. But love doesn't mean unlimited access to my bank account. It wasn't about money, Maya said, tears starting. It was about family, about helping people who needed help, about being a good person. Then why did you lie about what the money was for? Every time. If you believed you were doing the right thing, why hide it? She didn't have an answer for that. Or maybe she did and Rachel had told her not to say it. The silence stretched. Tom cleared his throat. I have some questions for Mrs. Chen. Would you be willing to answer a few while we're all here? Rachel looked suspicious. That's not standard procedure. Humor me. Maya, the condo in Marina del Rey, the one Serena lives in. How was that purchased? Maya's face went carefully blank. I don't know the details. You don't know how your sister purchased an $800,000 condo 2 years ago? She had savings. From where? She's never held a job paying more than minimum wage. She had other sources of income, such as, I don't know, family loans, things like that. Tom slid another folder across the table. This is the property record. The down payment, $150,000, came from an account in Patricia Ramirez's name. Your mother. Where did your mother get $150,000? Maya looked at Rachel. Rachel's jaw was tight. My client doesn't have to answer questions about her mother's finances. Actually, she does, Tom said mildly, because we believe that money came from David, indirectly, through a series of transfers that were misrepresented. That's speculation, Rachel snapped. Then let's remove the speculation. Maya, in March 2023, David gave you $115,000 for wedding expenses, correct? Yes. How much did the wedding venue actually cost? Silence. Maya, I don't remember exactly. The invoice shows $42,000. Where did the remaining $73,000 go? More silence. Did you give it to your mother? I might have helped her with some things. Did you tell David you were doing that? It was my money. Wedding money. I could use it however I wanted. It was David's money, Tom corrected. Given to you for a specific purpose. Using it for something else without disclosure is fraud. We were getting married. Everything was becoming ours anyway. That's not how the law works. The deposition continued for another 2 hours, Tom methodically walking through transaction after transaction, Maya's answers becoming increasingly evasive, Rachel trying to object to everything but unable to stop the fundamental problem. The evidence was damning. By the end, Maya was crying openly. Rachel was furious, and I felt empty. This was necessary. I knew that. The truth needed to come out. But watching Maya fall apart, watching the facade crumble, watching her realize that her lies had consequences, it wasn't satisfying the way I'd thought it might be. It just hurt. A different kind of hurt than the betrayal, but hurt nonetheless. When we finally finished, Maya left without looking at me. Rachel stayed behind to talk to Tom about scheduling. I walked out to the elevator alone, pressed the button, waited. The doors opened, and there was Maya, red-eyed and shaking. I hope you're happy, she said. I'm not. You're destroying everything. My family, my life, everything. You destroyed it.
I said quietly. I'm just holding up a mirror. We could have worked this out if you'd just been willing to compromise. Compromise requires both people being honest about what they want. You were never honest. Not about the money, not about your family, not about what you expected from this marriage. The elevator dinged. She didn't get in. Neither did I. I loved you, she said again. Maybe. But you loved your family's financial security more. And you know what? I understand that. Family is important, but you can't build that security on lies. You can't fund it with someone else's money and call it love. So that's it? You get everything and I get nothing? You'll get whatever the court says you're entitled to. But you're not entitled to property bought with money obtained through fraud. You're not entitled to my investment account that you drained. You're not entitled to keep the house you put in Serena's name using my credit. She stepped into the elevator. You used to be kind. You used to be honest. I guess we've both changed. The doors closed between us. I took the next elevator down. In the lobby, Tom was waiting. That went well, he said. She's rattled. Rachel's rattled. We're in a good position. Great. He looked at me carefully. You okay? I will be. This is the hard part. The human part. It gets easier once we're just dealing with paperwork and settlements. Does it? Yeah. Because then it's just business. Today was personal. We walked out into the afternoon heat. The city stretched around us, indifferent to our drama. All these buildings full of people having their own crises, their own betrayals, their own reckonings. Tom, I said, when this is over, when we've settled, when the divorce is final, how do I know I'm not going to end up here again? How do I trust anyone? He was quiet for a moment. Then, you don't. Not completely. But you learn the warning signs. You keep better records. You don't give power of attorney to anyone who hasn't earned it over years. Not months. You protect yourself without becoming paranoid. Sounds lonely. Better than being exploited. I couldn't argue with that. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it unread, but something made me open it. You think you're winning, but you're not. We have evidence too. You'll be sorry. I showed Tom. He sighed. Screenshot and forward to me. I'll add it to the harassment file. How much of a file do we have now? Thick enough. If they keep this up, we can get a restraining order. I imagined Maya's family being legally barred from contacting me. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like the sad, inevitable ending to something that had started with hope and ended in lawyers and threats and empty houses. But it was ending. That was something. The investigator's name was Sarah Kwan, and she had the kind of face that you'd forget 5 minutes after meeting her, which was probably why she was good at her job. 40-something, wearing jeans and a blazer, carrying a messenger bag that looked like it had been through a war. She sat across from Tom and me in his conference room, spreading photographs across the table like she was dealing cards. This is interesting, she said, tapping one of the photos. Very interesting. The photo showed the Riverside house, but not empty, like when Tom and I had visited. This one had furniture visible through the windows. A couch, a dining table, curtains. When was this taken? I asked. Yesterday. I've been watching the property on and off for the past 2 weeks. Nobody lives there. I can confirm that. But 3 days ago, a moving truck showed up. Furniture was delivered. Professional staging, from what I can tell. Tom leaned forward. Staging? Like they're preparing to sell it? That would be my guess. But here's where it gets interesting. She pulled out another photo. This one showed a man in a suit standing in front of the house, holding what looked like a tablet. This is Mark Feldman, real estate agent, works for a high-end brokerage in Orange County. I followed him after he left. He went straight to a meeting with Serena Ramirez. They're going to flip it, I said, the realization settling over me. The house was never for Serena to live in. It was an investment property. They used my credit to buy it, they're going to fix it up and sell it, and they pocket the profit. Sarah nodded. That's what it looks like. And if they can sell it quickly, before the divorce is finalized, before your lawsuit gains traction, they might be able to argue the proceeds are marital property. You'd be entitled to half.
but they'd walk away with several $100,000. Tom was already typing on his laptop. We need to file an emergency motion. Freeze the asset. Prevent any sale until the lawsuit is resolved. How fast can you do that? I asked. I'll have it filed by end of business today. But David, this is going to escalate things. They're going to know we're onto them. Good. Let them know. Sarah pulled out more photos. Patricia's house, James's condo, Serena's waterfront place. Each one professionally photographed, documentation of a lifestyle that didn't match the sob story Maya had been selling me for 3 years. I also pulled financial records, Sarah said. Public ones, property taxes, liens, that kind of thing. Patricia's house? She's behind on property taxes. 3 months. James's condo? He took out a second mortgage 6 months ago. $40,000. Serena's place? She's renting out a room on Airbnb for $250 a night. Wait, I held up a hand. Serena's renting out part of her condo? Second bedroom. Has been for about a year. She's making decent money too, probably close to $6,000 a month after Airbnb's cut. I looked at Tom. So she has income, actual, verifiable income. Which means she could potentially qualify for a mortgage on her own, Tom said slowly. Which means the claim that she needed David's credit was potentially fraudulent from the start. Sarah tapped another photo. There's one more thing. I tracked down the contractor who did work on the Riverside house before it was purchased. Turns out there was a pre-purchase inspection, foundation issues, electrical problems. The seller was motivated because the house needed about $80,000 in repairs. Let me guess, I said. Maya knew about this. The inspection report was emailed to her 2 weeks before the purchase. I have the email chain. Tom sat back in his chair. So she knew she was buying a problem property. She knew it would need significant work. She used your money for the down payment and your credit for the mortgage, for a house that needed expensive repairs, that nobody was going to live in, that was going to be flipped for profit. This wasn't help. This was a business deal that you weren't told you were a partner in. The weight of it was staggering. I'd known Maya had lied. I'd known the family had manipulated me. But seeing it all laid out like this, the premeditation, the planning, the sheer scope of the deception, it was something else entirely. How much do you think they stand to make if they sell? I asked. Sarah pulled out a spreadsheet. The house needs work, $80,000 like I said, but the market in that area is strong. If they put in the repairs, stage it properly, they could probably sell for $750, maybe $800. That's a purchase price of $920. Add in the repairs, closing costs, realtor fees. They'd probably clear about negative $200,000. I blinked. Negative? They overpaid for a fixer-upper by about $300,000. Even with repairs and a sale, you're underwater on this property. The only way this makes financial sense is if... She trailed off, thinking. Unless they never intended to pay the mortgage. The room went silent. Tom spoke first. Strategic default. They buy the property in your name, let you make payments for a while, then stop paying. The bank forecloses. Your credit is destroyed. But they've already extracted value somehow. How? I asked. If they can't sell it for a profit? Rental income, Sarah said. Even short term. If they could rent it for $3,000–4,000 a month for a year, that's $48,000 in their pocket. You're paying the mortgage, they're collecting rent, and when the whole thing collapses, it's your name on the foreclosure, not theirs. I felt sick. That's not just fraud. That's organized criminal activity. It's wire fraud, potentially, Tom said. Using electronic communications to commit fraud. That's federal. That's FBI territory. He looked at me carefully. David, if we pursue this angle, we're not just talking about a lawsuit anymore. We're talking about potential criminal charges. Against Maya? Against all of them. Maya, Patricia, Serena, potentially James if he was involved. This isn't small-time fraud. This is conspiracy. I stood up and walked to the window. 18 floors below, people were living normal lives, going to lunch, checking their phones.
not dealing with the realization that their wife and her entire family had been running a criminal enterprise using their credit. "I need air," I said. Tom nodded. "Take a walk. Think about how far you want to push this. Sarah and I will start documenting everything for the emergency motion." I left the office and found myself walking without direction, past restaurants and shops and office buildings. The afternoon sun was brutal, but I barely felt it. My mind was racing through the implications. Criminal charges, federal crimes. Maya could go to prison. Her whole family could. Part of me, the part that was still angry, still hurt, still reeling from the betrayal, wanted that. Wanted them to face real consequences. Wanted the world to know what they'd done. But another part of me, the part that had loved Maya, that had sat at Patricia's table for Sunday dinners, that had helped James practice for job interviews, that had listened to Serena's dreams about starting a business, that part hesitated. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Hello?" "David." A man's voice. Familiar, but I couldn't place it. "This is James, Maya's brother." I stopped walking, found a bench, sat down. "James, what do you want?" "I want to talk, in person, just you and me, no lawyers." "That's not a good idea. Please, just give me 30 minutes. There's a coffee shop on 5th and Grand. I'm here now. I'll wait." He hung up before I could respond. I sat there for a long moment, weighing options. Tom would tell me not to go. Tom would say it was a trap, a setup, an attempt to get me on record saying something they could use. But James had always been different from the rest of his family. Quieter, less manipulative. Or maybe that was just what I'd wanted to believe. I walked to 5th and Grand. The coffee shop was one of those trendy places with exposed brick and reclaimed wood furniture. James was sitting in the back corner, 2 cups of coffee already on the table. He'd lost weight too. His suit, one I'd helped him buy for interviews 2 years ago, hung loose on him. "Thanks for coming," he said as I sat down. "I probably shouldn't be here. Probably not." He pushed one of the coffees toward me. "Black, right? No sugar. You remember." "Yeah." He was quiet for a moment. "David, I need to tell you something. And I need you to not interrupt until I'm done. Okay?" I nodded. He took a breath. "I didn't know. About the house. About what Maya was planning. I knew she'd been helping Mom and Serena with money that I assumed was coming from your joint accounts, with your knowledge. But the power of attorney thing, the mortgage, the scale of it, I didn't know until after it was done. Okay. And when I found out, I told Maya she'd gone too far. I told her she needed to come clean, to work it out with you. She said it was fine, that you'd understand. That you'd see it was for family." He looked at his coffee. "I believed her, because I wanted to believe her. Because if I didn't believe her, I had to face the fact that my sister, my mom, they'd been using you. That they'd been using me to use you. The loans I gave you, most of them were real. The job interview clothes, that was real. The first startup loan. I really did try to build something. But the second one, the big one," he swallowed hard. "Mom told me to ask you. She told me exactly what to say. She said you'd give it to me because you loved the family, because you wanted to help. And I did it," I asked. "And you gave me $50,000 that I immediately turned over to Mom for the down payment on my condo." "You knew it was for the condo?" "Not at first. She told me it was for an investment, that she'd pay me back. But then when I saw the condo, when she told me it was mine, I knew. I knew where the money had really come from." He finally looked up at me. "I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry, David. I should have said something. Should have told you. But I was drowning in debt, and Mom made it sound like this was the family coming together to help each other, and I convinced myself it was okay. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? I'm going to pay you back," James continued. "Every cent, the 50,000. It'll take me years, but I'll do it. I've already started looking for a second job. I'm going to make this right, James. And I'm going to testify, in court, about what Mom told me to do, about the whole thing. Because what they did to you wasn't right. It was fraud, and I can't keep being part of it." I stared at him. You're willing to testify against your own family?
I'm willing to tell the truth. There's a difference. He pulled out an envelope and slid it across the table. This is everything I know. Dates, amounts, conversations. Written out. Signed, I've already sent a copy to your lawyer. I opened the envelope. 3 pages of handwritten notes. Detailed. Damning.
Why are you doing this? I asked. Because I'm tired of being who they wanted me to be. The good son. The one who goes along. The one who doesn't ask questions.
His voice cracked slightly. And because you were good to me, you helped me, you believed in me, and I repaid that by letting them use me to steal from you. I have to live with that.
But I don't have to keep participating in it. We sat there in silence for a while. Around us, the coffee shop hummed with normal conversations, first dates and business meetings and friends catching up. Life continuing, while mine kept fracturing. What happens now? James asked. To them? To Maya? I don't know. Tom thinks we might have grounds for criminal charges, federal fraud.
James nodded slowly.
Maya's scared. She's been calling me every day, crying, telling me that you're going to destroy the family, that we need to stick together.
And what do you tell her? I tell her that you didn't destroy anything. That she did. That they all did. And that maybe if they'd treated you like a person instead of a bank account, none of this would be happening. How's she taking that?
Not well. Mom says I'm a traitor. Serena won't speak to me. But I don't know. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm actually being honest, and that feels better than their approval.
My phone buzzed. Where are you? We need you back here. Emergency. I showed James the text. I have to go.
Okay. He stood up when I did, extended his hand. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Truly. I shook his hand. I believe you. Will you tell your lawyer about this? About my offer to testify?
He already knows. You sent him the statement, remember?
Right. He looked lost.
Good luck, David. I hope things work out for you.
I left him there and practically ran back to Tom's office. My mind was spinning. James was willing to testify. That changed everything. With inside testimony, we could prove conspiracy. We could prove intent. We could. I burst into Tom's office. He was on the phone, face grim. When he saw me, he hung up. What's wrong? I asked. The house in Riverside. Someone burned it down. The words didn't make sense at first. What? Arson. Fire department got the call 3 hours ago. The whole place is gone. And David. He paused. The fire department found accelerants. This wasn't an accident. I sat down slowly. They burned down the house. Someone did. We don't know who yet, but the timing is awfully convenient, given that we were about to file to freeze the asset. Insurance, I said, the pieces clicking together. They took out insurance on the house. Now they file a claim, collect the payout, and if the insurance is in your name, you're potentially liable for insurance fraud if they determine it was arson for profit. Tom's expression was grave.
David, this just went from a civil case to a criminal investigation. The arson unit is going to get involved. They're going to look at everyone who had a financial interest in that property.
They're framing me. Or they got desperate and sloppy. Either way, we need to establish your alibi for today. Where have you been? Here, then walking. Then, I met with James Ramirez at a coffee shop on 5th and Grand. Tom's eyes widened.
You did what?
He called. He wanted to talk. Tom, he's willing to testify against them. He gave me a written statement. About the fraud? About all of it. He's corroborating everything. Tom ran his hand through his hair.
Okay. That's actually good. We need to get him in here, get a formal deposition before he changes his mind. But first, we need to deal with the arson situation. I'm going to call the fire marshal. Let them know you're cooperating fully, that you had no knowledge or involvement.
I didn't.
I know.
But we need to be proactive. We need to show them the evidence we've been gathering. Show them that the Ramirez family had more to gain from burning that house than you did.
My phone buzzed again. Text from an unknown number. Should have dropped the lawsuit when you had the chance. Now you're going to learn what happens to people who mess with family. I showed Tom. His jaw clenched. Screenshot that. Forward it to me. That's witness intimidation. That's obstruction. He picked up his phone. I'm calling the police. This has officially crossed the line. I sat there, numb, as Tom made calls. To the police, to the fire marshal, to the DA's office, putting wheels in motion that couldn't be stopped. The house was gone, burned to ashes. And somehow, despite everything, despite all the evidence and all the lies, the Ramirez family thought they could still win this. They were wrong, but they were also getting desperate. And desperate people do dangerous things. The arson investigator's name was Detective Marcus Webb, and he had the kind of eyes that had seen too many people lie. We sat in an interview room at the police station, not quite an interrogation room, Tom had assured me, but close enough that the distinction felt academic. Walk me through yesterday again, Webb said. He was maybe 50, with graying hair and a wedding ring worn smooth from years of wearing it. Starting from when you woke up, this was the third time through. I kept my voice steady. I woke up at 6:30, showered, got to Tom Bradshaw's office by 7 for a meeting. We reviewed evidence until about 10. Then I went for a walk. That's when James Ramirez called me. James, the brother-in-law. Yes. What did he want? To apologize, to tell me he was willing to testify about the fraud. We met at a coffee shop on 5th and Grand around 11. The meeting lasted maybe 45 minutes. Then I went back to Tom's office. Did anyone see you between the coffee shop and the office? I walked. There were people around. I don't know if anyone specifically noticed me. Webb made a note. The fire started around 2 p.m. Can anyone verify your location at that time? I was in Tom's office. His assistant can confirm. We were on a conference call with the investigator we hired. Sarah Kwan. Yes. And you were on this call when you learned about the fire? No. Tom got a call from the fire department around 3:30. That's when we found out. Webb leaned back in his chair. Mr. Chen, I'm going to be straight with you. This fire wasn't an accident. We found evidence of multiple ignition points. Gasoline. Based on the smell and the burn patterns. Someone wanted that house gone. It wasn't me. You had $1 million mortgage on a property you never wanted. A property that was underwater financially. A property that was about to be frozen by court order. You had motive. I also had legal avenues to deal with it. Why would I commit arson when I was about to win my lawsuit? Anger. Revenge. People do stupid things when they're emotional. Tom cut in. Detective, my client has been nothing but cooperative. He's provided a detailed timeline. He's offering to take a polygraph. He's giving you access to his phone records. If you're going to accuse him of arson, you need more than motive. Webb's expression didn't change. We're not accusing anyone yet. We're gathering information. He turned back to me. Tell me about your relationship with Serena Ramirez. I barely know her. She's my wife's sister. We had dinner together a few times. That's about it. Did you know she'd been arrested before? That stopped me. What? 2019. Insurance fraud. She filed a false claim on a car accident. Case was dismissed when she paid restitution, but it's on her record. I looked at Tom. He looked as surprised as I felt. I had no idea, I said. And Patricia Ramirez. Did you know she declared bankruptcy in 2015? No. Or that Maya Ramirez Chen was investigated for credit card fraud in 2018? No charges filed, but the investigation happened. The room felt smaller suddenly. Every revelation was like another layer peeling back, showing me that I'd never known these people at all. I'd married into a family of con artists, and somehow never noticed. Detective, Tom said carefully, it sounds like you're establishing that the Ramirez family has a pattern of financial crimes, which would suggest they're more likely suspects in an insurance fraud arson than my client is. Webb smiled slightly. I'm establishing facts. The interpretation is ongoing. He stood up. Mr. Chen, don't leave town. We'll likely have more questions. After he left,
Tom and I sat there for a moment, in silence. Insurance fraud, I finally said. Maya was investigated for insurance fraud, apparently. And I married her. I gave her power of attorney. I trusted her with everything. You couldn't have known. I should have done a background check or something. Due diligence. I do it for business partners. Why didn't I do it for my wife? Tom packed up his briefcase. Because most people don't investigate the person they're marrying. Most people trust that love means honesty. Most people aren't married to criminals. We left the station and walked out into late afternoon sun. The sky was that particular orange that Los Angeles gets. Pollution and light combining into something almost beautiful. My phone rang. Sarah Kwan. I heard about the fire, she said when I answered. Are you okay? Peachy. Just got interrogated by an arson investigator. I have something. Can you meet me? Same coffee shop as last time? 20 minutes later, Tom and I were sitting across from Sarah. She had her laptop out and was pulling up files. I've been digging into the Ramirez family's financial history, she said. And I found something interesting. 3 years ago, right before you and Maya got engaged, Patricia took out a home equity line of credit, $200,000. On her house? Yes. Now, home equity loans aren't unusual. People use them for renovations, debt consolidation, whatever. But look at what happened next. She pulled up a timeline. 2 weeks after she got that loan, Serena paid cash for her condo. Marina Del Rey. Remember? We thought that down payment came from somewhere mysterious. It came from Patricia's home equity loan, Tom said. Exactly. Patricia borrowed against her house to give Serena money for a condo. Then, over the next 2 years, look at the payments on that home equity loan. She highlighted them on the screen. They line up almost perfectly with the emergency money you were giving to Patricia. I stared at the numbers. So every time Maya told me Patricia needed help, the car, the medical bills, the insurance deductibles, she was actually using your money to pay back the loan she'd taken out to buy Serena a condo. You weren't helping with emergencies. You were financing their real estate investments. The scope of it was staggering. This wasn't opportunistic fraud. This was planned, systematic. They'd set up the scheme before Maya had even married me. There's more, Sarah said. James's condo. I pulled the purchase records. The down payment came from a business account. Guess who owns the business? Patricia, I said flatly. Bingo. It's an LLC. Ramirez Family Holdings, formed in 2020. Patricia is the registered agent. And look at the deposits into that account. She pulled up bank records. They line up with the business loans you gave to James. Tom was furiously taking notes. So the entire family was operating as a single entity, using David as their funding source, funneling money through different channels to obscure the pattern. That's organized fraud, Sarah said. RICO territory, potentially. Racketeering. My phone buzzed. Text from James. I need to talk to you. It's important. Can you call me? I showed Tom. He nodded. I stepped outside and called. James answered on the first ring. David, thank God. Listen, you need to know something. The fire. It was Serena. My blood went cold. What? I heard her talking to Mom last night. I was at Mom's house. We were arguing about me talking to you. And Serena showed up. She was freaking out. Saying the house was a liability, that you were going to freeze it, that they needed to handle it before you could. And Patricia told her to calm down, to think it through. But Serena was saying they could collect the insurance, that it would solve everything, that no one could prove anything. Did you tell the police this? Not yet. I wanted to tell you first. But David, I'm scared. Serena's not. She's not stable right now. And if she thinks I'm going to testify against her, against them, I don't know what she might do. Where are you now? My condo. I've been keeping the doors locked. I know it sounds paranoid, but it's not paranoid. James, call Detective Webb. Tell him everything you just told me, right now. Will you come with me? To the station? I looked through the window at Tom and Sarah. I'll meet you there in 30 minutes. After I hung up, I went back inside.
told them what James had said. Tom's expression was grim. If Serena committed arson, and James can testify to her, stating intent beforehand, that's premeditation. That's a serious felony. 5 to 9 years in California. Good, I said, and I meant it. We met James at the police station. He looked terrified, hands shaking as he held a coffee cup he wasn't drinking. Webb interviewed him for over an hour. Tom and I waited outside. When James finally emerged, he looked drained. "They're going to arrest her," he said quietly. "Serena, they said they have enough for a warrant. They're going to pick her up tonight." "Good," I said again. "She's my sister," James said, and his voice cracked. "I know what she did was wrong. I know she's been using you, using all of us. But she's still my sister, and I just sent her to prison." I didn't know what to say to that, so I just stood there, while James cried in the fluorescent lighting of a police station hallway. Tom drove me back to the hotel. It was past 9 p.m. I was exhausted. "This is going to get worse before it gets better," Tom said as he pulled up to the entrance. "When they arrest Serena, Maya's going to lose it. Patricia too. They're going to blame you. They already blame me. This will be different. This is criminal charges, real consequences. They're going to fight dirty. Let them." Back in my hotel room, I ordered room service and turned on the news. The fire wasn't big enough to make the broadcast, but I found a local news website that had a brief mention. "Suspicious fire in Riverside home, under investigation. Arson suspected." No mention of arrests yet. That would come tomorrow. I tried to sleep but couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Maya's face from the deposition. Saw Patricia at Sunday dinners, calling me Mijo. Saw Serena at our wedding, making a toast about family being everything. They'd all been lying. All of them. For years. At midnight, my phone rang. "Maya." I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "They arrested Serena," she said without preamble. Her voice was hoarse from crying. "They came to her apartment an hour ago. Handcuffs. Like she's some kind of criminal. She is a criminal. She committed arson." "You don't know that." James heard her planning it. Silence. Then, "James, of course, my own brother, turned against us by you." "I didn't turn anyone. He made his own choice. You destroyed this family, David. You know that? You came into our lives. You made us depend on you, and then you ripped it all away. Serena's in jail because of you. Because you couldn't just let things go. Because you had to have your revenge. Serena's in jail because she committed multiple felonies. None of this is my fault. Everything is your fault." She was screaming now. "You could have helped us. You could have been a real partner, a real family member. Instead, you hoarded your money and your privilege and you watched us struggle. I gave you hundreds of thousands of dollars. It wasn't enough. It's never enough for people like you, is it? You always have to keep score. Always have to make sure you're getting yours." "People like me," I repeated. "What does that mean?" "You know what it means." And I did. I heard it in her voice. The resentment, the class warfare, the fundamental belief that because I'd succeeded, because I'd saved, because I'd built something, I owed her family everything they couldn't build themselves. "Goodbye, Maya. Don't you dare hang up on me." I hung up, blocked her number, sat there in the dark hotel room, shaking. The next morning, I woke to my phone buzzing with news alerts. Serena's arrest had made the local news. Woman arrested in Riverside arson. Insurance fraud suspected. There were photos. Serena being led out of her building in handcuffs. The burned remains of the Riverside house. And one photo of me pulled from somewhere, maybe LinkedIn, with a caption, "Property owner David Chen declined to comment." My phone started ringing. Reporters. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I went to Tom's office. We had work to do. The DA called. Tom said when I arrived, "They're offering Serena a deal. If she testifies against Maya and Patricia in the fraud case, they'll reduce the arson charge to reckless endangerment. 3 years probation instead of prison." Will she take it? Her lawyer seems to think so. She doesn't want to go to prison. And apparently,
she's pretty angry at Maya right now. Why? Because Maya told her the arson was a good idea, encouraged it, according to what Serena told her lawyer. Maya said it would solve all their problems, so Serena's feeling like she was set up to take the fall. I laughed. A short, bitter sound. They're turning on each other. Criminals usually do when the pressure's on. Honor among thieves is a myth. Over the next week, everything unraveled. Serena took the deal and gave a deposition implicating Maya in the fraud scheme. James testified about the systematic funneling of money. Sarah provided documentation of every financial transaction. The DA filed charges: wire fraud, insurance fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud. Maya, Patricia, both facing federal charges. The divorce became almost incidental. Maya's lawyer tried to negotiate a settlement, but we had all the leverage now. Tom pushed for a clean break. No spousal support. Return of all fraudulently obtained funds. I kept my premarital assets. She kept nothing, because there was nothing legitimate to keep. She signed the papers on a Tuesday morning in November. We didn't see each other. Lawyers handled everything. Just like that, it was over. The marriage, the fraud, the war. I stood in Tom's office, holding my copy of the signed divorce decree, and felt nothing. Not relief, not satisfaction, just a hollow emptiness where 3 years of my life used to be. "How do you feel?" Tom asked. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Ask me in a year." That night, I left the hotel for the last time. I'd rented a new apartment, smaller than the house Maya and I had shared, quieter. Just me and a view of the city, and the chance to start over. As I unpacked, my phone buzzed. "James, thank you for everything. I know this was hard, but it was the right thing." I typed back, "Take care of yourself. You too." I set the phone down and looked around my new place. Empty walls, boxes to unpack, a life to rebuild. But it was mine. Finally. Completely mine. And that was enough. The federal courthouse was different from the county building where I'd filed the divorce. Bigger, more imposing. Security checkpoints and metal detectors. And U.S. Marshals with expressions that suggested they'd heard every excuse and believed none of them. I sat in the gallery on a Wednesday morning in January, watching Maya and Patricia sit at the defense table with their attorneys. They'd arrived separately, weren't speaking to each other anymore, according to Tom. The conspiracy had fractured completely. Every person for themselves now. Maya looked smaller than I remembered. Her hair was different, shorter, no longer styled with that expensive precision she'd always maintained. She wore a navy suit that I didn't recognize. Borrowed, maybe? Or bought on a budget that didn't include my credit card? She didn't look at me. Not once. Patricia, on the other hand, stared daggers. If looks could kill, I'd have been dead before the judge entered. Her lawyer kept putting a hand on her arm, probably telling her to control her expression, but the hatred was evident. Judge Andrea Walton entered, and we all stood. She was 60, black, with gray hair pulled back and reading glasses on a chain. She'd been on the bench for 20 years, Tom had told me. She'd seen everything. "Please be seated," she said, her voice carrying that particular authority that comes from years of people having no choice but to listen. "We're here for sentencing in United States versus Maya Ramirez Chen and Patricia Ramirez. Case number 23, CR 8847. The prosecutor stood. Daniel Vance, early 40s, with the kind of sharp suit that government salaries don't usually afford. He'd been relentless during the trial. Every transaction documented. Every lie exposed. Every member of the Ramirez family's scheme laid out for the jury like a blueprint of betrayal. Your Honor, Vance began, the government recommends 48 months for Mrs. Ramirez Chen and 60 months for Mrs. Ramirez. These were sophisticated crimes carried out over multiple years. The defendant showed no remorse, attempted to destroy evidence, and even committed additional crimes, arson, witness intimidation, to cover their tracks. Maya's lawyer stood. Rachel Winters. She looked tired. This hadn't been the case she'd expected when she took it on. Your Honor, My client has suffered tremendously. Her marriage ended. Her reputation is destroyed. She's lost everything. The punishment has already exceeded the crime.
We ask for leniency, perhaps supervised probation, community service, restitution. Mrs. Ramirez Chen is not a danger to society. She made mistakes, yes, but prison time is excessive.
Judge Walton looked at Maya. Mrs. Ramirez Chen, would you like to address the court?
Maya stood slowly. Her hands were shaking.
Yes, Your Honor.
Her voice was quiet.
I want to say that I'm sorry for everything. I never meant for things to go this far.
I was just trying to help my family. We were struggling, and my ex-husband, he had so much, and I thought it wouldn't hurt him to share, but I was wrong.
I see that now. I'm sorry.
She sat down. The apology felt hollow, practiced, like something her lawyer had written for her. Judge Walton turned to Patricia's lawyer. He stood an older man named Martin Chu, with white hair and the resigned air of someone who knew he was fighting a losing battle. Your Honor, Mrs. Ramirez is a 62-year-old woman with no prior felony convictions. She's a grandmother. She works 2 jobs. Yes, she made poor choices, but these were choices born of desperation, not malice. We ask the court to consider her age, her circumstances, and her limited role in the conspiracy. Limited role? Judge Walton raised an eyebrow. Mr. Chu, the evidence showed that your client was the architect of this scheme. She set up the LLC. She coordinated the financial transfers. She instructed her children on what to say to Mr. Chen to obtain money under false pretenses. Your Honor, I've read the transcripts, Mr. Chu. I've seen the evidence. Don't insult this court by suggesting Mrs. Ramirez was a passive participant. Patricia's lawyer sat down. Mrs. Ramirez, Judge Walton said, anything you'd like to say? Patricia stood, and unlike Maya, she didn't look contrite. She looked defiant. Your Honor, I did what I had to do to take care of my family. My daughter married a rich man who had more money than he knew what to do with. Money he got from his parents, from his privilege, from a system that rewards people like him and punishes people like us. We needed help. He had the means to help. I don't think that's a crime. I think that's family. Judge Walton's expression didn't change. Sit down, Mrs. Ramirez. Patricia sat. The judge looked at her notes for a long moment. The courtroom was silent. I could hear someone breathing heavily a few rows behind me. Could hear the clock on the wall ticking. I've presided over a lot of fraud cases, Judge Walton finally said. Con artists, embezzlers, people who steal from the elderly, from charities, from their employers. And usually, there's a clear dividing line. The criminal and the victim. The perpetrator and the harmed party. She looked at Maya and Patricia. This case is unusual because it involves family. Because it involves a marriage. Because the defendants have attempted to frame their crimes as somehow justified by relationship, by need, by cultural obligation. She paused. Let me be clear. Family does not grant you license to steal. Marriage does not give you the right to commit fraud. Poverty does not excuse crime. Maya was crying now, silent tears running down her face. Mr. Chen worked hard for his money. He saved. He invested. He built financial security through discipline and sacrifice. The defendants decided that his security should be their safety net. They lied. They manipulated. They forged documents and created fake emergencies and systematically extracted hundreds of thousands of dollars under false pretenses. Judge Walton looked at the prosecutor. Mr. Vance, your sentencing recommendations are noted. However, I'm taking into account several factors. Mrs. Ramirez Chen has no prior felony record. She did eventually cooperate with investigators, and she has lost her marriage, her home, and her social standing. These are consequences that, while self-inflicted, are nonetheless severe. She turned to Maya. Maya Ramirez Chen, you are sentenced to 36 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years of supervised release. With Sedan 2, you will also pay restitution in the amount of $473,000 to David Chen. Maya's lawyer put a hand on her shoulder. Maya was sobbing now. Patricia Ramirez, your role was more significant. You orchestrated this scheme. You taught your children to lie. You showed no remorse even today, choosing instead to blame the victim for having the audacity to succeed. You are sentenced to 54 months in federal prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. You will pay restitution of $200,000. Patricia's face went white. Her lawyer was talking to her urgently, but I couldn't hear what he was saying. Both defendants will surrender themselves to the Bureau of Prisons within 30 days. This court is adjourned. The gavel came down. Just like that, it was over. I sat there as people started to leave. Tom was beside me, gathering papers, but I couldn't move. I watched as marshals approached Maya and Patricia, explaining the next steps. Watched Maya's shoulders shake with sobs. Watched Patricia's face harden into something cold and bitter. Rachel Winters approached me as I stood to leave. "Mr. Chen," she said. "A word?" Tom tensed beside me, but I nodded. "Maya wanted me to tell you something," Rachel said quietly. "She couldn't say it in court, but she wanted you to know that part of it was real. Your marriage, her feelings. She did love you, in her own way." I looked past Rachel to where Maya sat, head in her hands. "In her own way," I repeated. Her own way involved stealing from me, lying to me, and trying to frame me for arson when I found out. If that's her version of love, I'm glad it's over. Rachel nodded slowly. "For what it's worth, I think you were right to pursue this. What they did was wrong." "Then why did you defend them?" "Because everyone deserves representation. But that doesn't mean I don't recognize the truth." She paused. "Take care of yourself, Mr. Chen." She walked away. Tom and I left the courthouse together. Outside, the January sun was bright and cold. My breath fogged in the air. "How do you feel?" Tom asked. "Same question, as always." "I don't know," I said. Same answer. We walked to a coffee shop across the street. Inside, it was warm and smelled like espresso and cinnamon. We found a table in the corner. $473,000 in restitution, Tom said. "You won't see most of it. Maya doesn't have that kind of money. Neither does Patricia. Even with payment plans, you'll be lucky to recover $50,000 over the next decade." "I know. But the criminal convictions matter. They can't do this to anyone else. And if they try, they're repeat offenders. The sentences get longer." "I know." Tom studied me. "You're not celebrating." "Should I be? My ex-wife is going to prison. Her mother is going to prison. I got justice, but it doesn't feel like victory." "It rarely does. Not in cases like this." He was quiet for a moment. "But David, what you did was important. You stood up for yourself. You didn't let them get away with it just because they were family, because it would be easier to stay quiet, because fighting back seemed cruel. You did the hard thing, the right thing." I drank my coffee. It was too hot and burned my tongue. "James called me yesterday," I said. "He's in therapy now, trying to deal with everything. He said he's grateful, that I showed him it was possible to break free from them." "How's he doing?" "Better. He got a new job. Actually pays well. He's making payments on what he owes me. $50 a month. It'll take him forever, but he's trying." "That's something." "Yeah." We sat in comfortable silence for a while. Around us, the coffee shop buzzed with life. Students studying, couples on dates, a man reading a newspaper. All these people living their lives, unaware that in a courtroom 3 blocks away, 2 women had just been sentenced to prison for crimes born of greed and justified by blood. My phone buzzed. Email from my lawyer handling the civil case. The divorce settlement had been distributed. The house had sold. After paying off the mortgage and legal fees, I'd cleared about $40,000. Not the million I'd lost, but something. More importantly, my name was off the deed, off the mortgage, off every financial entanglement with the Ramirez family. "I'm thinking about leaving," I said. "Los Angeles. Maybe moving up to San Francisco. Or Seattle. Somewhere I can start fresh." Tom nodded. "New city.
New job, new life, something like that. That's probably healthy. This place has too many ghosts. He was right. Every street corner had a memory. The restaurant where Maya and I had our first date. The park where I'd proposed. The grocery store where we'd shop together, arguing about whether to buy organic produce. I couldn't drive past our old house without feeling something twist in my chest. "When will you go?" Tom asked. "Couple months. I need to wrap things up here first. Settle accounts. Say goodbyes." I paused. "Thank you for everything. I know this wasn't the easiest case." "Are you kidding? This was fascinating. Depressing, but fascinating. And you were a good client. You did what I asked. You didn't do stupid things out of anger. You kept receipts." He smiled. "Speaking of which, I'll send you my final invoice next week. How bad? Bad enough, but less than it could have been. Since they pled out, trial would have been another 50,000. Easy." I winced, but nodded. The price of justice. Literally. After we parted ways, I drove to the beach. Santa Monica. Parked and walked down to the water. It was cold for California, maybe 50 degrees, and the beach was mostly empty except for a few dedicated surfers and a man walking his dog. I stood at the edge of the water and watched the waves. Thought about the past year, the envelope, the discovery, the fire, the trial. All of it seemed surreal now, like it had happened to someone else. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but then thought, what else could they do to me? "Hello? David?" A woman's voice. Familiar, but I couldn't place it. "Yes, this is Serena." I nearly hung up. Nearly. But something stopped me. "What do you want?" "I'm calling to apologize. I know I don't deserve your time, but I needed to say it. I'm sorry. For everything. For the lies. For the arson. For being part of what they did to you." "They?" I repeated. "You were right there with them." I know. And I hate myself for it. I've been in therapy. The court mandated it as part of my probation. And I've been working through why I did what I did. Why I thought it was okay. And I think I was raised to believe that people like you owed people like us. That because you had money and we didn't, that gave us a right to it. My mom, she always talked about redistribution. About how the rich got rich by taking from the poor, so taking it back wasn't stealing, it was justice. I didn't say anything. "But that's bullshit," Serena continued. "You didn't steal from us. You worked for what you had. And we stole from you. We lied and manipulated, and when you caught us, I burned down a fucking house because I couldn't face the consequences." Her voice broke. "I'm so sorry, David. I'm so fucking sorry." Okay? That's it? What do you want me to say, Serena? That I forgive you? That we're good now? We're not. What you did, what your whole family did, it broke something in me. I don't trust people the way I used to. I don't open up the way I used to. You all took something from me that wasn't in my bank account. I know. I wanted you to know that I see it now, what we did, and I'm trying to be better, to actually earn things instead of scamming for them. I got a real job, at a retail store. It pays shit, but it's honest, and I'm working on my issues, my entitlement, my victim mentality. Good, I mean that, good for you. Do you think someday you could forgive me? I watched a wave crash against the shore, watched it retreat. Another one building behind it. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe. Someday. But not today. That's fair. That's more than fair. She was crying now. Take care of yourself, David. You too. She hung up. I stood there for a long time, phone in hand, watching the ocean, thinking about forgiveness, about justice, about whether the two could coexist or if they were fundamentally opposed. The truth was, I didn't know. I didn't know if I'd ever forgive Maya, or Patricia, or Serena. Didn't know if the satisfaction of their prison sentences would ever outweigh the ache of betrayal. Didn't know if moving to a new city would let me outrun the ghosts
Or if I'd just bring them with me. What I did know was this. I'd survived. I'd fought back. I'd refused to be a victim, refused to accept their narrative that I was the villain for wanting to keep what I'd earned. I'd drawn a line and defended it. And maybe that was enough. The sun was setting now, turning the ocean gold. I took a photo, not for social media, not to prove anything to anyone, just for me, a reminder of this moment, the end of one chapter, the threshold of another. Tomorrow, I'd start looking at apartments in San Francisco, start researching jobs, start building the next version of my life. Tonight, I'd go back to my apartment, order takeout, and sleep without the weight of ongoing legal battles or unanswered questions. For the first time in a year, the war was over, and I was still standing. That had to count for something. 6 months later, I stood in my San Francisco apartment, watching fog roll across the Golden Gate Bridge. The view was different here, softer. The light hit buildings at angles I wasn't used to, and the air tasted like salt and possibility. My phone sat on the counter, screen dark. No threatening messages, no lawyer calls, no family emergencies that weren't really emergencies. Just silence, the good kind. I'd taken a new job 3 months ago, supply chain director for a tech startup. Smaller company than before, but the work was interesting, and nobody knew about my past. I was just David, the guy from LA who was good with logistics and kept to himself. I'd made one friend, coworker named Marcus, who'd invited me to play basketball on weekends. We didn't talk about personal stuff much. Just sports and work, and whether the new taco place on Valencia was worth the hype. It was enough. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Through the peephole, I saw a delivery driver holding a small package. I opened the door. David Chen? That's me. He handed me the package and a clipboard. I signed. He left. The return address made my stomach drop. Riverside County Clerk. I knew what this was before I opened it. Inside was a cashier's check for $18,000 and a letter on official letterhead. The Riverside property had finally sold after extensive repairs to fix the fire damage, after months of sitting on the market. The insurance payout had covered the mortgage balance and some of the reconstruction. This check represented the tiny sliver of equity that remained after everything was settled. $18,000. Out of the million I'd been committed to. Out of the $473,000 Maya was supposed to repay. I should have been angry. Should have felt cheated. Instead, I just felt tired. There was a handwritten note, paper clipped to the letter. I recognized the handwriting immediately. David, I know this doesn't make up for anything. I know $18,000 is a joke compared to what I took from you. But it's what's left, and the court ordered it sent to you. I'm 6 months into my sentence now. I have a lot of time to think in here. About what I did. About who I became. About how I convinced myself that needing something gave me the right to take it. I was wrong. About everything. About money. About family. About what marriage means. I turned you into a villain in my mind because it was easier than facing the fact that I was the villain in yours. You deserved better. You deserved honesty. You deserved a partner, not a parasite. I hope San Francisco is good to you. I hope you find someone who sees your generosity as a gift, not a resource to exploit. I hope you learn to trust again, even though I'm the reason you can't right now. I'm sorry. I know I've said it before. I'll probably say it 1,000 more times in therapy, but I mean it. Take care of yourself. Maya. I read it twice. Then I folded it and put it back in the envelope with the check. The part of me that was still angry wanted to tear it up, to mail it back with a note about how her apology meant nothing, how 3 years in prison wasn't enough, how she'd destroyed something in me that might never heal. But the part of me that was tired, the part that had spent 6 months building a new life, making new routines, learning to exist without the constant weight of betrayal, that part just wanted to let it go. I deposited the check on my phone. $18,000 appeared in my account like a ghost of everything that had been lost. Then I put the letter in a drawer and closed it. Maybe someday I'd throw it away. Maybe someday I'd read it again and feel something other than exhaustion. But today, I just needed it to be over. My phone rang. Tom. Hey, I answered. What's up? Just checking in. How's the Bay Area treating you? Good. Quiet. Normal. That's good. That's what you need. He paused. I heard the Riverside property finally settled. Yeah, got the check today. And a letter from Maya. You okay? I think so. It's strange. I spent so long being angry, and now I just feel empty. Not in a bad way, just neutral. That's healing, Tom said. Anger is exhausting. Neutrality means you're moving on. Maybe. Listen, I called because I wanted to give you an update. Patricia got released to a halfway house last week. Health issues. They're letting her serve the rest of her sentence under house arrest. I felt something flicker. Not quite anger, just awareness. Is she going to be a problem? No. Her lawyer made it very clear that any contact with you violates her release terms. She knows if she tries anything, she goes straight back to prison. What about Serena? Still on probation. Working retail, like she told you. Staying clean, from what I hear. James is doing well too. He paid off another $1,000 of what he owes you. He doesn't have to do that. I know, but I think it matters to him. Helps him feel like he's making it right. We talked for a few more minutes. Updates on mutual acquaintances. Talk about possibly meeting for dinner next time Tom was in San Francisco. Normal conversation between two people who'd been through something abnormal together. After we hung up, I walked to the window again. The fog had cleared slightly. I could see the bridge fully now. Red towers rising through white mist like a promise. My laptop sat open on the kitchen counter. I'd been looking at houses earlier. Not to buy, just browsing. Imagining a future where I'd saved enough again to own something, where I'd trust someone enough to share a mortgage. It seemed impossibly far away, but also, for the first time in months, possible. I thought about the judge's question, the one she'd asked during sentencing, almost as an aside. She'd looked at me in the gallery and said, "Mr. Chen, what do you hope comes from this?" I hadn't answered then. The question had felt rhetorical. But if I could answer now, I'd say this. I hope to learn the difference between generosity and exploitation, between helping and enabling, between being kind and being a fool. I hoped to rebuild my ability to trust without losing my ability to verify. I hoped to find someone someday who understood that my bank account wasn't a measure of my love, and that keeping boundaries wasn't the same as keeping score. Most of all, I hope to forgive myself for not seeing it sooner, for ignoring the red flags because I wanted to believe in the best version of people who were showing me their worst. My phone buzzed. Text from Marcus basketball tomorrow? Bring your A game. I'm tired of destroying you. I smiled and typed back. You got lucky last week. Tomorrow I'm coming for blood. Sure, man. 10 a.m. Usual court? See you there. I set the phone down and looked around my apartment. Small, but mine. Paid for with money I'd earned, honestly. Shared with no one who might drain my accounts or forge my signature. The silence used to feel lonely. Now it felt like peace. Outside, the city was coming alive, with evening. Lights flickering on, cars heading home. Lives being lived by people who had their own struggles, their own betrayals, their own reckonings to face. I wasn't special. I wasn't unique. I was just one more person who'd trusted the wrong people and paid the price. But I'd survived. I'd fought back. I'd refused to let them rewrite the story with me as the villain. And now, finally, I was free. I closed the laptop, made dinner, ate it while watching the sunset paint the city gold. Tomorrow, I'd play basketball with Marcus. Next week, I'd have coffee with a woman from work who'd asked if I wanted to grab lunch sometime. Next month, maybe I'd visit James, hear about his progress, let him tell me I didn't need to forgive him yet. Life would continue. Slowly, carefully. With boundaries, I'd learn to enforce, and trust, I'd learn to ration. But it would continue. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you loved, you know this feeling. The moment where the anger finally loosens its grip, where the hurt becomes a scar instead of an open wound.
where you realize that surviving was its own kind of victory, even if it doesn't feel like one. I'd wanted justice. I'd gotten it. I'd wanted revenge. I'd gotten that too, in its quiet way. But what I had now, this apartment, this job, this life rebuilt from ruins, this was better than either. This was mine. Earned, protected, real, and nobody could take it from me. I turned off the lights and went to bed, the city glowing through my window like a promise of tomorrows I'd almost lost. The war was over, and I'd won by refusing to lose myself in the fighting. That was enough. That was everything.